Imagine with me, you're living a boring life from home to work and from work to home, and without any warning, you find yourself stuffed into the body of someone you don't even know. And from here, you get to use magic, meet dragons, go on adventures, and the world goes completely crazy. Our story begins with Takro. We learn that he's a 30-year-old employee riding public transport to go to work. We learn that he's fed up with his life because his day repeats almost every day. The same job, the same commute, the same everything. Even though this is supposed to be the normal life for any young man his age and should be comfortable for him. But he's sure there's something else, something different he can do. And then while he's sitting minding his own business, watching TV, he's surprised by a very bright light that emerges. Without any warning, he suddenly finds himself sitting in a strange place with a person in front of him welcoming him. He doesn't understand anything and asks him, "Who are you, for God's sake?" And this guy says to him, "Well, you could consider me the supervisor of the solar system." Takro then says to him, "So understand, are you an alien or what is this talk?" And he says to him, "Well, not exactly right, but something close to that." Anyway, after that, we see him using his magic skill and an image of a planet appears before him. He starts to learn that its name is Medius, and no matter how many times matters progress there, they always get out of control, and the civilizations there always collapse without any warning. That's why I'm forced to intervene personally from time to time. He then lifts the cup in front of him, puts a drop of water on it, and lets him know that this single drop can change the entire world. That's why I brought you today, so you can become the bead that must change this world. Takro says to him, "What are you talking about, man? Change whose world? How can you even say such things to me? I'm just an ordinary person," he says to him. "Look, in any case, if you don't agree to this offer, you will simply disappear from existence." Takro says to him, "What is this nonsense you're saying? And how can you talk to me as if it's a casual topic that I might disappear from existence? Look, just don't get worked up. I'm not sending you there empty-handed. I can give you any gifts you ask for, and also all the abilities you want." Up until now, he's not comprehending the talk. He says to him, "Wait a second, what kind of gifts are you talking about?" He says to him, "Look, the abilities I'm talking about are that you can use magical power." So he writes on the form he has, and Takro doesn't understand anything and says, "What magic, man, are you talking about?" Let's see, he starts to think for a bit and says to him, "But I want some really awesome companions, but don't rush your livelihood. You'll meet all that on your journey anyway. Look, I'll give you a skill to my taste. You can use the exploration skill, so you can gather materials and sell them to earn some money and funds. Just great. Isn't that right?" But the old man sacrifices and insists on giving him a bag where he can store everything he wants. "I will grant you the language of this world so you can communicate with the humans there." Then, Takro is standing, surprised that his legs are starting to fade from the place. "You see, time's up. If you had listened to me, you'd be there by now, early and eating." Then he starts screaming, saying to him, "Man, what you're saying. Fine, okay, send me there. And speak calmly without screaming, and don't worry, everything will be just fine." Then we see everything start to fade away before him. He says, "Uh-oh, I feel like I'm about to get screwed over right now." Anyway, my friend, after moments, the story tells us we see Takro beginning to wake up in his new body. He's surprised to find himself in a forest and says, "Wow, so this thing is real? It wasn't a dream." He starts asking himself, "So what am I supposed to do now? What's the deal?" He says to himself that he's now in the forest and there's no one around him, so he should go to the nearest city. He starts walking through the forest, and after a while of walking just fine, we see he finally manages to get out of that dense forest and reaches the nearest village. But he says to himself, "Wait a second, I'm broke, and if I go there without anything, I probably won't find food or drink." Suddenly, he remembers the exploration skill that the great guy gave him. Through it, he can gather resources to sell so he can earn some money, funds, and cash. So he says, "Let's give it a shot," and he tries to use the exploration magic, but nothing happens. He feels frustrated and says, "Uh-oh, was that guy lying to me? No, I think I pronounced that word wrong." He starts trying different pronunciations, saying words like search, and we see the exploration spell finally activate. As soon as he looks around, he's surprised to see strange marks surrounding him everywhere, through which he can pinpoint the location of the resources he can gather. He realizes he can only activate the exploration magic when he pronounces the correct word. Anyway, after that, we see him approach one of the plants and tries to examine it through his system to know its abilities. And he starts as usual, finally managing to activate the appraisal skill. Through it, he can learn that the plant in his hand is of B rank, and this puts him at the peak of success because this magic is very useful. After that, he gets up and goes to gather all the resources marked by his system. After he manages to gather some resources like Felgol, but it's just forced, and I think these resources will serve the purpose. But the problem for him is that most of them are of low. Then he notices a stone among the plants, and when he picks it up, he sees that it looks beautiful. So he tries to use the appraisal skill on it. And here comes the shock for him. What he's holding in his hand is a mirror stone, and not just that, it's of high. After the system discovery, he learns that all specialized resources have a specific mark. After he puts all the resources he collected into his bag, he's excited and wants to know exactly how much he can earn from the resources he gathered. And since it's getting late, he tries to go to the village before dark falls. Indeed, we see him reach the village guards. The guard is basically asleep, and when he first sees him, he says, "Who are you?" He starts introducing himself, saying he's just a traveler, nothing more. The guard notices that he's very tall. He says to him, "So, are you a warrior or a swordsman, or what's the deal?" He says to him, "No man, what are you talking about? I came here to sell some resources, that's all." He says to him, "A specialist in gathering resources? That's very rare." He says to him, "Anyway, my name is Marur, one of the village guards." Before letting him into the village, he says to him, "Look, we don't have specialized resource shops here, but there's a big store that buys everything from." When Takro enters the village, we notice that he's taller than the people present, and he attracts attention with the people's glances. He's extremely embarrassed. But anyway, he continues on his way until he reaches the shop. As soon as he enters the shop, the old man there starts talking to him and says, "Who are you? I haven't seen you before. Are you looking for something specific? Buy them." After that, he takes out the stone he found in the forest, and the old man is astonished and scrutinizes it. He's amazed because the item in his hand is called a rose anteater hammer, and it's strong and in excellent condition. "Honestly, I'm surprised you managed to get something like this. What do you say I buy it from you right now for 5 silver coins? Takro says to him, "Honestly, I don't know the prevailing prices, so maybe you could give me some background on them. Or you could tell me how much a night at the inn costs so I can do my best." The old man says to him, "Look, sir, staying at the inn for one night costs 500 lala. Anyway, as for the single silver coin, it's worth 1,000 lala." Our friend starts calculating for the items he brought. He's surprised they are worth 50,000 lala. The old man says to him, "So, do you agree to the deal?" He says to him, "Sure thing, boss." The old man is extremely happy to the point that he starts pinching his cheek and says to him, "You fool, do you know what you're pinching on your cheek exactly?" We see the old man says to him, he says to you, "If you have other resources, show them to me, maybe I'll buy them from you." Takro says to him, "Is that all?" He gets up and takes out all the things he collected from the heart of the forest. The old man is amazed and says to him, "You managed to gather all this by yourself, you son of a..." Takro says, "All there is to it is that I was traveling between countries and collecting things, meaning these are from the road." The old man says to him, "Since you're a specialist in gathering resources, I have a job for you that's just great." Takro says to him, "I don't have a problem, but can you clarify for me what kind of job you want me to do exactly?" The old man says, "I don't have any problem, but you must focus with me. I want you to go now and gather mithril ore from the eastern mountain." He says, "I don't have any problem, but do you have a map of that place?" The old man says to him, "Easy and simple since we've..." After that, he gets up and takes out a bundle of lala and says to him, "What do you think, sir, about taking 350,000 lala in exchange for the resources you brought me today?" Takro says, "This amount is worth about 3.5 million Japanese lala." But the old man says, "Look at the paper before you go there. I must warn you, there are many monsters there. The situation is on you. You are a young man and you're awesome, and I'm not worried about you in that regard." He says to him, "Wow, are you telling me this now?" Anyway, after our friend leaves the old man, he goes to the nearest inn and really wants to take a solid shower to relax a bit. While he's sitting, we see a young girl entering and letting him know that they brought him some hot water, that their inn provides this service for a small fee. Takro is surprised by this and says to her, "Wait a second, what am I supposed to do with this water exactly?" She says to him, "Well, I'm the one who should be telling you. You can wash your body, your hands, and your face." With this talk, and since you're an adventurer and keep tiring yourself out for nothing, you should, like to clean yourself. Takro says to her, "Actually, I want to take a shower. Where is the bathroom?" The girl says to him, "Bathroom? What bathroom are you talking about, man? Those things are only for the nobles." Takro here takes the shock. He says, "Wow, why do you keep surprising me?" She says to him, "Look, I heard that some mages have magical abilities that allow them to clean themselves, something like that, similar to a quick shower." He says, "Wow, why do you keep surprising me?" She says to him, "Look, I heard that some mages have magical abilities that allow them to clean themselves, something like that, similar to a quick shower, but unfortunately that talk isn't available in our village at all." Hearing this, he is amazed and says to her, "Miss, why didn't you tell me from the beginning?" So he decides to take the hot water from her and gives her some lala and says to her, "Keep the change for your sake." After that girl leaves him and walks away, he starts as usual, with the incantation until he manages to reach the correct incantation in less than a moment. The water starts cleaning him from every part. After he finishes, we see the guy literally shines as if he just came from the agency. Our friend is extremely happy but says to himself, since I love bathrooms anyway, this won't suit me in the future, but never mind. On the second day, we see Takro goes to the forest and starts gathering resources. The appraisal and exploration skills make it easy for him to gather high-value resources. While gathering resources, he notices a mark he sees for the first time among the herbs. So, he approaches that mark. Here comes the shock for him. He finds a corpse in front of him. What the hell is this dirty talk? We didn't agree on this. But still, he's curious and tries to use the appraisal skill on the items next to the corpse. They turn out to be very valuable, but it's not clear what level they are exactly. So he decides to take this sword that's thrown on the ground. You know that honoring the dead is by burying him. So he tries to bury him and continues gathering resources until night falls upon him. So he tries to surround himself with a circle and activates the barrier magic for it. After that, he tries to cook and relax and make some food for himself. He had planned with some spices and puts meat on them. When he finishes cooking, he starts eating and finds that he made something awesome, to be honest. After he goes to his state, he tries to go deeper into that forest more and more until he reaches the forest of white trees. This forest actually has a name too and is known as the Ancient Dragon Forest. And as we learned from the old man, this forest is dangerous and full of monsters. We know he must cross this forest to reach the eastern mountains and start gathering mithril ore. He starts delving into the forest and uses magic to start lighting his way through the plants he starts collecting. He realizes that this area has neither monsters nor living creatures, so he takes advantage of this situation for his own benefit and starts advancing further and further into this forest to get out of it as quickly as possible. And this foolish security exits the forest, but we see him falling off a cliff. But he stays quiet, and we see he's about to fall and break his neck. He tries to use flight magic and starts improvising incantations until he finally manages to activate it. He keeps using this skill, managing to land on the ground safely. When he looks ahead, he's surprised to find that he has actually landed in a mine, and in front of him are many ores that he must extract. In the meantime, we see he doesn't waste time and takes out his small sickle and starts digging for minerals. The first thing he manages to extract is silver ore, which makes him excited. Some time passes just fine, but unfortunately, he hasn't found anything related to mithril ore yet, so he tries to use his exploration skill on the widest scope. Indeed, he manages to pinpoint the location of some ores, but they are in a place deeper than the rest. While he's standing without any warning, we see an earthquake occurs. So he tries not to waste time and starts using fire magic to blast that dam. When his flame approaches the place where the ore is, he blasts. When he approaches the hole he made, he's surprised that he can indeed gather some mithril ore, but this amount isn't sufficient and is small anyway. He's standing, we see another earthquake occurs in the place, so he hurries himself and starts exploring this place more and more. He starts walking among the caves until he manages to reach a place from which a strange blue light is emanating. When he approaches the source, here comes the shock for him. He sees very clear water. He is amazed by what he's seeing because it's the first time in his life he sees water with such an appearance. He becomes very curious about this water, so he tries to use the appraisal skill on it. It turns out to be magical and of SS rank. This puts him at the peak of excitement because this is the greatest discovery he has managed to discover so far. Through the appraisal skill, he can tell that this water is saturated with ancient dragon mana, without a doubt. So, he's sure that this dragon must be living here. So he wants to take some of this water from them, but at the same time we start hearing a strange voice. It starts talking to him and asks him, "How dare you wake me from my sleep?" But it becomes clear to us that Takro isn't even hearing this voice. As soon as he touches the water, we see a strange creature starting to emerge from it. Our story is by God's will, and he doesn't understand anything that's happening. He's surprised that a giant dragon appears before. I'm telling you, I've been talking to you since earlier. Why don't you answer my questions? On top of all that, I'm not finished. You managed to withstand my pressure, contrary to expectations. Exactly. We see Takro starts apologizing to this entity that he entered his home without permission. The dragon, for his part, is also by God's will in his story, not understanding the being in front of him. He says to him, "Are you foolish, my son? By God, you're foolish. But take it easy at first. Who are you?" Our friend starts introducing himself, that his name is Takro, and he's one of the humans. The dragon is amazed and says to him, "You're a human, but an immense amount of magic is emanating from you. So awesome that it woke me from the stasis I was." Takro says to him, "Magical power overwhelming. What are you talking about, man? Honestly, I don't understand anything from you." The dragon says to him, he says to you, "Don't play dumb. The magical power emanating from you could rival my own magical power. Takro says to him, look, excuse me for the question I'm asking you. Are you the ancient dragon, the owner of the forest outside that everyone is talking about? The dragon says to him, correct, and introduces himself, and his name is Flauties. Takro says to him, wait, Flauties, I'm telling you, can I just give the name Flu right away? The dragon says to him, even though I feel it, but call me whatever you want to call me. He learns that he wants a request from him. Since you're so awesome, he says to him, no offense, what do you want from me exactly so my mind doesn't go left? Flu says to him, all there is to it is that I want you to use this magical power of yours to revitalize my child. Takro says to him, revitalize, man? What are you talking about? I'll simplify it for you. As you see, this place is saturated with mana that doesn't allow dragon eggs to hatch. But be careful, the request I'm asking of you, you're not doing it for fun or for the homeland. No, there will be a reward. Just as the dragon puts his finger in the water, we see an amount of mithril ore appears before Takro. When our friend uses the appraisal skill on it, he learns that this mithril ore isn't like any ore. It is from the purest mithril ores, so he says to him, done, boss. Where is the egg you're talking about? Who says to him, since we've agreed, he then proceeds to take out the egg for him. The egg is completely black. The first time he sees its size, he is amazed because it's truly huge. After he holds this egg, he starts talking to the dragon and says to him, no offense, what exactly do I do with this egg and how? Flu says to him, easy, honestly. All there is to it is that you channel your magical power in. Takro says, no, explain the matter to me, I don't understand anything. The dragon says to him, the matter is easy and simple. He says to him, just like you made that ball of light, put a drop of the same mana into the egg. Takro then starts turning the matter over in his mind and understands that he must warm the egg. Indeed, he starts feeding it with his mana to try to warm it. All of this is unjust for him because this egg isn't normal and starts swallowing his mana. At the same time, we see this dragon is extremely happy and keeps laughing discreetly. And from here, our friend becomes sure that he has been tricked. Tell me guys, I just arrived in this world, and you want to pull a fast one on me so early? The matter doesn't stop for us, because his body starts to fade, and in a few moments he finds himself in a strange place, as if he's drowning in water. Suddenly he starts hearing the voice of the same person he met the first time. What's with this situation, boss? You like to do reckless things from time to time. So after that, we see he appears before him and says, normally when dragons appear before humans, they get scared out of their minds and run away. But you are different and you decided to change all the rules. He says to him, what are you talking about, man? I don't understand anything from you. But he reassures him and lets him know he will understand everything in due time. And as for the generous abilities I gave you before, I see they are not sufficient for you, and that's why I decided to weaken. And be careful, boss, since you wish to have a funny partner, then bear what will happen. Yes, I'm sure he will cause you some troubles, but he will be useful for you in the future. But Takro doesn't get a chance to understand anything from him, and after that, he faints. After a few moments, he starts to wake up again and finds himself in the same cave with the dragon. This time, he isn't hearing the dragon's voice alone, but there's another voice too. To find out the source of this voice, he tries to use the light skill to start seeing what's around him. He's surprised that the egg has hatched and a small dragon has come out of it. The first time our friend sees it, he is extremely happy because this is the son of the awesome dragon. The small dragon, for his part, the first time he sees him, jumps on him as if he's his mother. But Takro can't stand his smell, which of course has just come out of the egg, and its smell is rotten to the extreme. As for the dragon Lotus, he starts talking to Takro and asks him to name this righteous child. Takro is stumped and says to him, what are you talking about, man? You name him, you're the father, not me. The dragon Lotus lets him know that he does indeed have a name, but the name you give him will be his real name. Takro says to him, well, wait a second, let's sit and think. After a bit of thinking just fine, he says to him, what do you think of the name? Since you only pronounce one word, which is Bao Bao. This small dragon, the first time he hears his new name, is extremely happy about it. After that, Lotus starts talking to his son. He says to him, look, Luri, I want you to leave this cave and start exploring the whole world. So we see Takro and this small dragon become a team together. He is amazed by what's happening. He says to him, what are you talking about, man? You're his father, meaning you're supposed to show him the world, not me. But Lotus says to him, there's no need for this talk now. Since you are a good person and also so awesome, with great magical power, with this, I can entrust my son to you, and I am reassured. After that, we see Lotus starts using his power and does something in his direction. After that, he starts to submerge in the water, and before he disappears completely, he lets him know that he is relying on him for everything. As for Takro, after they manage to gather some mithril just fine, he starts talking to him and says to him, He says to you, boss, from today we will be able to go on trips and gather resources and will be awesome and cool to the extreme. But before anything, your smell is rotten. So he tries to use purification magic on him and cleans him. And up to here, my friend, we have reached the end of the first episode of Takero's story. So you're like, share and smooth subscribe, and let's get this video to 100,000 likes, and wait for us in the new parts of Takero's story. After that, we see Takeru after a while walking just fine. They finally managed to get out of the cave they were in. It's the first time for this baby dragon to leave the cave, so he's extremely excited and bouncing all over the place. As for Takeru, he realizes that traveling through the forest at night will be dangerous, and on top of that, he's hungry. So he starts talking with Pi, and they decide to camp together for the night. He starts preparing things. The first thing he does is open the backpack and finds it full of water, my friend. This is the same water found in the ancient dragon's lake. We learn that the ancient dragon used his magical power to link Takeru's backpack to the lake. This is because the water is saturated with mana, and naturally it's essential for this baby dragon to grow quickly. After he finishes drinking, Pi says, "Hit me one more time," but this time he doesn't drink it. He lets Takeru drink it himself. So our guy starts drinking it and finds its taste different from any water he's drunk before. It's extremely pure. Anyway, after that we see Takeru starts using the magic stones and places them around. After he finishes, he uses them to activate a magical barrier to protect them from any dangers while they sleep. He starts remembering when he was at the old man's shop and read the encyclopedia on magic stones. He saw that these stones are very important and their price is precious. Back to the present, he tries to use his power to create a magic stone, and indeed he succeeds in doing that. He then uses it as a fire source so he can cook and make some great food. Our guy here is pampering the food. He takes out a piece of lamb and starts cooking it, making some excellent soup out of it. Just as he finishes and is about to start eating, he glances at this baby dragon and sees him drooling over himself from how delicious the food is, wanting to devour it. Although our guy is hesitant at first, thinking it might be harmful since he's still a child, he decides to give him a few spoonfuls, just like any normal child. He starts gulping it down quickly, even though it's hot and burns him. Takeru says, "You idiot, didn't I tell you it's hot?" And since our guy has a big heart, he cools down the soup for him and starts feeding it to him. I is in utter bliss, to the point that this baby dragon literally melts. As for Takeru, he's happy about this because he finally found someone to share the food he eats with. Then he starts asking Pi, "Hey buddy, don't you feel lonely since you've been separated from your father?" He's surprised that the dragon gets close to him, denies feeling lonely, and confirms he doesn't feel lonely as long as he's with him. He uses the appraisal skill on him and is surprised that this creature is way stronger than him. But despite all these dirty tricks, he decides to take responsibility for protecting him, feeling that this cute dragon is very endearing to him and he can't do without him. So he starts talking to Pi and gives him some instructions, saying, "Even if you are stronger than me, you must never, under any circumstances, act recklessly, and you must always listen." He tells him, "If anything happens to you, the dragon father inside you will come and give you a serious beating." But Pi is already in another world, having gone into a deep sleep. Our guy starts remembering that when he first came to this world, he wished for a nice partner. Then he remembers Mosin, the one who brought him here, and says, "Wait a second, maybe that dude planned everything." But anyway, the next day, my friend, we see Takeru takes Pi and they start climbing the mountains until they finally reach the forest. He confirms that this is the same path he came from and that it's the same cliff he fell from. But he's surprised that the forest's appearance has completely changed. However, he tells himself that in the beginning and the end it's considered a mysterious forest, he's in another world, and the laws he lived by don't necessarily apply to this world's. He decides to walk around in it a bit. He also decides to seize this opportunity and start gathering some resources. He uses the search skill to focus only on rank S resources. Indeed, he finds some plants and starts collecting them. But suddenly this cute dragon comes to him, scared of something specific. He confirms that something dangerous is coming towards them. So he uses the search skill again, this time for monsters. Through it, he can pinpoint the locations of the monsters nearby. But he says to himself, "Wait a second, before I entered the cave there wasn't a single monster that dared to come near me. Probably because of that foul smell, no one came near." Despite that, he prepares to face these monsters, thinking that if he kills them, he'll surely get some great resources. Suddenly, buddy, we see a dangerous monster appears behind. Takeru uses the appraisal skill and learns the monster's name is Rock Vulture and it's rank C. It's very dangerous because it's a carnivorous predator. He says to himself, "If I had encountered this creature before meeting the dragon, I would have said it's savage, but it's actually cute compared to him." When he looks at the rest of its stats, he's surprised that one of its characteristics is that its meat is very tasty. He says, well, that's it, you're on the grill, prepare to be devoured. While this creature is thinking of attacking him, we see Takeru uses his magic to create a barrier around him. After that, he manages to create ice crystals in front of him. The vulture decides to attack him. He says, well, that's it, we've secured dinner for the next month. But Pai starts warning him that something is coming from behind them. Suddenly a pack of wolves arrives where they are. He says, well, it seems we're going to have a meat feast. We see one of the wolves tries to attack him, but at the same time we see Takeru uses a self-enhancement spell, a different type of magic, to make his body lighter and increase his speed. When the wolf tries to pounce on him, Takeru manages to dodge it in the blink of an eye. Then he says, not bad, and delivers a fatal blow to its head, literally finishing it off. The second one decides to seize the opportunity and attack him, but Takeru manages to block its attack and delivers a punch that sends it flying, along with the one coming behind it. After finishing the fight, he starts collecting the meat into his backpack. He also collects some other great resources. He then uses the detection skill and is surprised that more monsters are coming in his direction. He says, oh man, I can't fight all day long. We must escape once and for all. He finds Pierre grabbing him and trying to lift him, attempting to fly with both of them. He says, hey boss, what exactly are you doing? He understands that he's trying to carry him so they can fly, both of them. He tells him, dude, why didn't you say so earlier? He then uses a spell on himself to make his body light. Soon we see the two flying at insane speed through the air. He starts talking to him, saying, calm down, buddy. By the way, we've covered a great distance. He starts convincing him to land on the ground, and indeed that's what happens. He lets him go and Takeru lands directly on his neck, followed by some intense tickling. We see our guy starts waking up from the coma he entered. When he starts looking around, the surprise for him is that they have left the forest and are now located on the road leading to the village he came from the first time. He understands that Pi was trying to save him from the start, and that's why he thanks him for what he did. But he says, be careful buddy, in the end, I'm just a human and you can't treat me the way you do. But anyway, it's clear that you've become a competent partner and it seems I'll rely on you in the future. This makes Pi extremely happy and he starts hugging him tightly. Takeru says, hey, I'm still human, don't be so violent. After they rest a bit, they get up and start continuing their journey. He starts getting to know Pi, learn that if they walk on this road for 2 days, they will reach the village. Takeru notices that Pi is very attached to the stick he's holding. When he uses the appraisal skill on it, he learns it's from rank SS and that he managed to get it from a famous. Without any warning, we see Pi starts blowing on the stick. After the dust disappears, he's surprised that the stick in his hand has turned into a huge spear. Here he understands what happened. The stick, when infused with Pi's special mana, started to grow and transformed into this. Although he isn't happy with the situation, he goes back and tells himself that having a magic spear will help him a lot. But he doesn't like its appearance because anyone who sees him with it will immediately call him a sorcerer. Suddenly, while they are standing, they hear the sound of a dangerous monster coming from the forest. So Takeru asks Pi to hide behind him until he sees how far this situation. After moments, absolutely nothing happens to the point that Pi decides to leave Takeru and decides to go into the forest himself. Of course, our guy runs after this silly kid until he sees where he's going. He follows him until he sees him circling around a specific tree. When he gets close to that tree, here comes the surprise. He finds a girl lying on the ground. Her condition seems very difficult. He starts asking, what happened to you? Did a monster get you, or what's the story? Suddenly he's surprised that birds start chirping from her stomach. He says to her, she starts explaining to him that she hasn't eaten anything in 3 days, which is why she's asking him for some water, because she's extremely thirsty. Our guy doesn't hesitate and takes out a bottle of water for her to drink as much as she wants. After she devours the entire water, she starts thanking him, saying, you saved my life. And after the sound of her stomach growling, he confirms that the dangerous sound coming from the forest was the sound of her stomach, which is utterly ridiculous. He says to her, wait a second, I should have some food I bought from the hotel I was staying at before coming to the forest. Indeed, he finds a sandwich for her. The moment that girl sees it, she snatches it and starts devouring it in the finest way, overjoyed with happiness. She says to him, buddy, this food is incredibly delicious. I don't think the situation needs that much exaggeration. Anyone who is hungry and eats will find the food amazing and delicious. After that, he starts talking to her and says, no offense, but I have a few questions you must answer because I'm very confused. She says, go ahead, buddy. Look, I'm very confused. It's possible you're far from the village, but not so far that all this happens to you and you run out of all food and drink in such a short time. She says, The thing is, everything happened suddenly, and I was forced to leave the village before taking all the resources I needed. But he says to her, still, that's not a justification. The girl gets angry with him and feels that he's belittling the food he gave her. She gets close to him. He says to her, what's this, lady? The awful smell coming from you. You've ruined all my imaginations about jam. I thought their smell would be great and refreshing, similar to jasmine or mint like this, but it seems your smell is similar to something called fertilizer. She says to him, what kind of nasty talk are you saying? Well, maybe his smell isn't that bad, but not to this degree. Are you stupid, buddy? What are you talking about? Anyway, I thank you very much for the food you gave me, but I must leave now. She waits for him to respond, plays with her teeth, and then runs away. After that, we see our guy sits aside and starts collecting some plants casually. After collecting everything he needs and continuing his journey, he finally exits the cursed forest once and for all. Suddenly, P.I. starts talking to him and alerts him that something is coming towards them. When our guy starts focusing a little, he's surprised to see a carriage coming from afar. He says to him, your eyesight is so sharp you could see all that distance. When the carriage reaches them, here comes the surprise. He's surprised that the horse looks strange. He uses the appraisal skill on it and learns that it's a unicorn horse. Yes, it's not fast, but it has enough physical strength to pull the carriage with complete ease. The carriage owner starts talking to Takeru and says, where are you going? Where are you coming from? What's going on with you? He says, nothing, buddy. As you see, I just came out of the forest and am on my way to Romi village. The man pulling the carriage, Mr. B, says to him, wait a second, you want to cover all that distance on foot? Takeru says, correct. And he says to him, you're crazy, that's very difficult for you. But then he notices the stick he's holding and says, wait a second, are you a sorcerer or what's the deal? Takeru says to him, no man, it's nothing like I use this stick to collect some resources and start trading with them and all that. The carriage owner says, you specialize in gathering resources, that's very difficult and rare. He says, anyway, buddy, we are currently heading to Romi village. What do you say you come with us? He says, thank you, buddy, but be careful, my body is a bit large. From here, the children, as soon as they come out, start laughing at his appearance. The driver says, no problem, buddy, ride with us. He gets into the carriage. We see the children start joking with him. He's surprised by this because ever since he came to this world, children have liked him in this strange way, and this has made things a bit easier for him. Naturally, since children like him, the parents don't worry about it. As for the carriage owner and his wife, they start introducing themselves, but we don't need their names for anything. They tell him that in their village, they made a decision that they must help anyone in need. So the children get close to Takeru and start offering him some sweets. Takeru says, wait a second, buddy, aren't you afraid I might be an evil man and kidnap everything you own? He says, no, none of that talk. You don't look evil at all. You're a silly person. If you really had any bad intentions towards us, our bell would have started ringing. Then they show him the magical tool through which they can detect the intentions of any person who decides to attack them or has evil intentions towards them. He says, wow, this thing is extremely useful. It seems I might be able to make it with magic stones later. After that, he starts talking to them and introduces himself, saying his name is Takeru. While they are sitting, we see P starts moving a little. The children, as soon as they hear his sound, say, what? Seriously, do you have a monster? He becomes worried about the situation and doesn't want to reveal PI. He tells them, I have a monster with me and he's quite rare. But the mother reassures him and lets him know that adventurers usually travel with monsters, so it's easy. This reassures our guy and he decides to show PI to them. The moment they see him, they are in utter bliss and excitement. The mother says, wait a second, where did you get this thing? They start learning that he had an egg in the forest and managed to use his magical power to make it hatch. This amazes them greatly as this is very rare. Yes, there are dragon knights, but they are also rare. As for a real dragon, it's much rarer than them. So he says to himself, if there are really other dragon knights in this world, then I must meet them and learn from them as much as possible. At the end of the day, they decide to camp together in the forest. Here we see Takeru tries to use the magic stones, obviously to create a barrier through them to protect them from any monsters that might think of attacking. The mother says, leave the food matter to me. I'll prepare some food for you with complete hospitality. But Takeru says, no, but lady, I'm treating you to food today. He takes out some spices, meats and all that and starts cooking. The children naturally, the moment they see him taking out these things, are amazed and say, are you a sorcerer? He says to them, no, all there is to it is that my backpack is called an item box and I can store anything I want in it. After that, we see Takeru starts preparing food for them and makes some incredibly tasty food for them. When they start eating, buddy, here comes the amazement for it's the first time they've eaten food with such deliciousness and flavor to the point that the father of the family starts shedding tears, crying and says, Buddy, we've been on this journey for about 10 days and all we've eaten is dry food, cured meat and dry bread. You know, life was dry for me, but this food... No, you've done so many things for us. After they finish everything and before they sleep we see them start singing and dancing, something utterly crazy. So when sleep time comes we see Takeru starts thinking about everything happening to him. Yes, I was living a stable life in my previous life, but I was always alone, all by myself, and it was extremely boring. But ever since I came to this world, I understood what it means to share food with other people and to laugh heartily. Truly. The next day, Takeru went to look for the family of Bellori, the men he found dead in the forest, to tell them what happened to him and give them some of his belongings. The family was utterly devastated with grief, especially since they had told him not to go on any adventures, but he had insisted to pay for his sick father's medicine. Takeru saw the father, exhausted and weary, and felt guilty that their son had died, so he decided to do anything to help them. After that, he went to the guild to sell some herbs, and the clerk there was amazed at the size of the mushrooms and leaves he brought. Suddenly, Ariana appeared and started looking for him, saying that people in the city had come to like him a lot, and there were several new jobs made specifically in his name. Takeru smiled and told her it was great they could recognize work like that, but he couldn't finish all these requests. He would take only a few. Later, he went to take a long shower in the public bath to relax. He remembered that when he first arrived, the bath was in terrible condition and the water smelled bad, so he used his purification magic to clean it and make the water nice. After that he went in, but a monster in human form known as the fighter Clay entered. Takeru was surprised he came now and said, "You usually never come at this time." Clay replied, "The weather looks like it's going to rain, so I thought I'd take my bath early." After a while Clay asked him, "Can you really use healing magic? Everyone is saying you cured a sick man in the poor alley for free." Takeru said, "Yeah, that did happen." Clay was shocked and said, "That's very rare, most healers charge a lot of money." Takeru thought for a moment and said, "You're right. I might have upset the healers since they take money and I did it for free." Clay burst out laughing and said, "You really are strange." He told him not to worry about anything. The important thing was that his conscience was clear. Clay encouraged him, saying, "Take the rank determination test because your level deserves much more than this." But Takeru said, "I'm comfortable like this. I don't need to be promoted." Before leaving, Clay told him, "Be careful of yourself because people like you always attract attention." Then he left him and walked away. After that, Takeru delivered a new batch of herbs to the guild. The clerk thanked him profusely and said his work was excellent, but asked why he didn't want to be promoted. Takeru replied with a smile, "I'm happy like this." Suddenly there was a big commotion in the guild. Someone ran and shouting, "A goblin horde is attacking the city from the southern plains." Everyone tensed up. The guild master ordered all adventurers starting from rank D and above to prepare for battle. But when asked about adventurers of that rank, they said there was only Clay in the city currently. The guild master smiled and said, "Good thing we have the Dragon King himself for support." Takeru heard all this and said, "I'm only rank F anyway and it's none of my business, let them handle it." But the guild master saw him and said in a sharp tone, "You're coming too whether you like it or not," because he was confident in him. Soon after, all the warriors gathered, and the guild master explained the plan. The goblins were coming from the southern plains, targeting the city. They had to stop them at the Zaus River before they reached it. Everyone got excited except Takeru, who looked very bored. The people around him looked at him and said, "What's this? How can a rank F participate with him?" The guild master said, "I'm the one who chose him, and I've heard a lot of good things about him." Then he walked away. Later, the little nurse Muesli came and said, "I don't know why they brought you, but don't worry, I'm here beside you and I'll help you." Takeru was surprised and said, "Help me how?" She said, "I know how to use healing magic and I'll be with the medical team." He laughed and thought to himself, she looks overly excited and that doesn't bode well at all. Later they reached the rear camp. Suddenly Muesli screamed when she saw a passing bird and immediately grabbed Takeru's arm in fear, so Takeru said, "Could you let go of my arm and step back a bit?" She said, "I'm not scared, you know." He looked at her and said, "Yeah, of course I know you're very brave." He told her calmly, "We're in a rear camp far from the battle and there's no danger here. Fear isn't a shame, the important thing is to do what you can." His words of course greatly encouraged her. She smiled and said, "I'll do what I can." She entered the tent. At that moment Clay came out and said to him, "You're really weird. A moment ago you didn't want to come and now you're giving motivational speeches." Takeru laughed and said, "I just don't like trouble, that's all." Then he was surprised and asked him, "Aren't you supposed to be on the front lines?" Clay told him, "I was resting a bit because my old wounds started hurting again." Takeru remembered the scars he saw on his back in the bath and asked him about them. Clay was silent for a moment and said, "The scars on my back are considered a mark of disgrace because they show I was stabbed while running away." But Takeru said to him calmly, "On the contrary, I see that you were protecting someone, and even if you got injured and survived, that's something to be proud of, not ashamed of." Clay was moved by his words. Suddenly they heard the sound of heavy footsteps approaching. The ground was shaking. Clay said with worry, "That means the front line has fallen." He grabbed his spear and said, "I'm going to stop them." Takaru said to him quickly, "Wait, your body is still hurting," but Clay ran off without listening. After Clay left him and ran off, Takaru stood there for a moment, watching him move away quickly, and thought to himself, that man is crazy trying to fight alone while injured like that. Then he looked toward the tent and saw Muesli inside trying to heal one of the injured adventurers. Her hands were shaking from fear, but she was trying to focus and perform healing magic. Takaru stood watching her and said quietly, "Even though she's terrified, she's trying to do what she can." He suddenly felt guilty and thought to himself, she's trying to fight her fear, and I'm trying to shirk responsibility, and that's not fair at all. He raised his head and said sharply, "I won't allow anyone here to get hurt." He started using his incantation and made a huge magic circle around the camp, saying, "This shield will protect them all, and no one will be able to get near." After making sure everyone was safe, he grabbed his staff and said, "Now it's my turn," and disappeared from his spot for a moment, appearing near the front lines of the battlefield. On the front lines, the adventurers were fighting desperately against the goblins. The number of goblins was enormous, and the war was extremely fierce. The defense line was beginning to collapse one by one. One of the leaders was shouting, "Hold on, don't let the city fall." But it was clear they couldn't hold out much longer. At that moment, Takaru appeared in the middle of the battle and went to punch one of them, sending him flying to smash into a rock, finishing him off. Everyone froze in shock, but he thought to himself, "Oh my god, these are just like humans." But there was no time to think. Then he called to Bee and said, "Come on now, finish off the rest." Bee immediately came and flew into the sky, striking with powerful lightning, and in a moment all the goblins were burned. Takaru went to check on the people and asked them what happened. They said, "We were fine at first, but then the goblin commander appeared. He was huge and strong, and we couldn't do anything against him. He had a strange weapon." He asked with concern, "Well, where did Clay go?" Diego replied quickly, "He came at the last moment and saved us from the goblin commander, but he got separated from us in the chaos, and we don't know if he's okay or not." Immediately, Takaru went out to search for Clay in the forest. When he reached the forest, he saw Clay fighting the goblins alone. He was fighting with all his might, but the wounds on his back were heavily affecting him. Every move pained him, yet he continued fighting. The goblins were many around him, and he was trying to fend them off with his spear. But in the end, the pain in his back increased too much and he fell to his knees. The goblins saw him falling and attacked him from behind. Before they could hit him, Takaru arrived at the last moment and immediately said an incantation, and a strong lightning bolt shot from his hand, striking all the goblins at once, managing to burn them and finish them all off. Clay looked at Takaru exhausted and said, "What are you doing here? This place is very dangerous." Takaru said, "I was looking for you and I can't leave you alone." Clay said, trying to stand up, "I can still fight and I won't abandon this battle." Takaru said, "That's enough. Your body can't take it, you'll die if you continue like this." Suddenly they heard a loud noise coming from afar and the sound of heavy footsteps shaking the ground. A huge goblin appeared from between the trees. Clay opened his eyes and said fearfully, "That's the goblin commander." Immediately the goblin commander attacked them, but both of them jumped at the last moment and managed to dodge his attack. Clay stood on his feet, suppressing his pain, and said to Takaru, "There's no way to escape now. We can't possibly run from this giant goblin." He said, "I'll stop him even if it's the last day of my life, and I won't let my friend die in this place ever." Takaru was very moved by Clay's words and said, "Let me ask you something before you start fighting with him." Takaru said, "The wounds on your back, do they have a special meaning to you?" Clay was surprised by the question because it was a very strange question during a battle. "I'll tell you later. Those scars don't represent anything to me but failure, and they remind me of how I was weak once, so I hate them with all my heart." Takaru said to him calmly, "So you wouldn't mind if they disappeared?" Clay was surprised and said, "Disappear? How? I don't understand." Immediately Takaru took out some of the magic water from his bag and threw it on him. Then he raised his hand and said the incantation for complete healing to erase his wounds. But apparently there was a side effect he hadn't accounted for because the wounds indeed disappeared, but Clay's body also began to change, and his skin color turned black. Takaru stood shocked, saying, "What happened?" Clay also didn't understand anything, but he noticed that all the pain was gone and felt a strange, unnatural power within him. He decided to try his new strength. He stood alone in front of the goblins, and in a few seconds he managed to finish them all off. That same night, Clay entered Takaru's room and had returned to his normal form, but he felt a tremendous energy within him. He said to him, "What exactly did you do to me today?" Takaru said very calmly, "I didn't do anything except use a bit of magic water from the ancient dragon as a catalyst, and then I performed a healing incantation on you to heal you." Clay was confused and said, "An ancient dragon? How do you even know an ancient dragon?" He replied, That legendary dragon is B's father. He is also an ancient dragon. Clay sat on the chair in front of Takeru, shocked, trying to comprehend what he had heard, and said, "What you did today isn't something any ordinary human could do. Tell me, who exactly are you, Takeru? Tell me now." Takeru thought for a moment and said, "The sorcerer king who brought me to this world never told me to hide my identity, so I don't need to hide it from you. He said I come from another world." Clay was silent for a few seconds, of course, unable to comprehend the words and not knowing whether to believe them or not. Takeru sat with him and explained everything that had happened since he arrived in this world. Despite his shock, Clay believed every word Takeru said because he had seen his power with his own eyes. After that, Clay promised him and said, "The secret will remain between us." He told Takeru, "You have to be careful because you possess great power, and you must have the strength and ability to control it." This, of course, after he changed his form in battle the last. After that, Takeru goes out to the city and goes to the craftsman, amazed at how big it is. He hadn't imagined its size. Suddenly he stops in front of a weapon shop because he wants to buy something important, but he hears someone standing behind. When he looks back, he finds the shop owner telling him, "Is there something important that caught your attention?" We continue our story and see Takeru asking her, "Do you sell shears for gathering resources?" She tells him, "We sell weapons." When she finds out that this is Takeru, the famous resource gatherer, she is very amazed to have met him and begins to introduce herself. We learn that the shop owner's name is Ripple, and she tells him, "I know a very skilled blacksmith who can make anything you want." She tells him he is a high-class blacksmith from the Taraz grade and his name is Gross. After that, she takes him to the blacksmith's forge, and they go to meet the blacksmith Gross. Ripple introduces him to Takeru, telling him this is the adventurer everyone is talking about, the one who saved the city last time from the goblin attack. So the blacksmith Gross begins to welcome him, surprised that he is still a beginner adventurer and has gained such great fame. After that, Ripple tells Gross, "I have an idea, we can get ore to make the swords we want." Gross understands what she wants exactly and says to her, "It's impossible to enter there because the mine you're talking about is very dangerous and full of monsters and demons." So she says, "Don't forget we have a competition deadline, and if we make our swords with ordinary ore, we won't win it." They keep arguing with each other. The two of them, and Takeru doesn't understand what the ore called a dar is, that they're so afraid to go after alone. In the end, Gross insists on not sending Takeru to the mine and says, "I'm not ready to send a young man there to die." But Takeru had a different opinion and says to him, "Is the dar ore in the Ryahi mine that important?" Ripple tells him, "Yes, it's the most important ore we're looking for to make our swords." So Takeru tells them, "I'm ready to go there and get the ore you want for you, in exchange for Gross making special shears for me that no one else can use." Gross says to him, "Son, you're crazy. Didn't I warn you that place is dangerous and full of demons?" He tells him, "Don't worry about me." He shows him the lobster claw he hunted. Gross and Ripple, when they first see it, are terrified and say that's something even rank B adventurers can't easily deal with. They finally agree that Takeru can go to the Manga Miyohai mine alone to get the ore they want, and they learn that Manga Miyohai is located in the city of the dwarves. Suddenly, B asks to eat the lobster they hunted. Takeru tells her unfortunately there's nothing left of it. He decides to go down to the forest to get food and goes down in front of the horse market. Suddenly, he hears a girl's voice shouting, and he says, "I've heard this voice before." It turns out to be the girl from the elf race that Takeru found in the forest last time, who ate and left him, running off, and she smelled bad. We see her shouting at the horse merchant, telling him she's looking for a horse with wings that can fly and is white. The merchant literally doesn't understand what she wants exactly and tells her, "I have many means of transportation like horses and birds that can deliver adventurers anywhere they want, but the white-winged horse you're looking for, unfortunately, isn't available with me." Takeru, of course, hears this argument and doesn't want to get involved so as not to bother with this girl again. He goes to the forest to gather resources. When he's in the forest and starts gathering plants, he hears a strange sound, and it's again the sound of the girl's stomach because she's hungry. When he goes to her, he finds her again in the same state. He gives her water and food, and she devours it like she's starving. When she wakes up again and thanks him, he smells her foul smell, so he immediately uses cleansing magic on her to make her smell nice. After that, the girl thanks him for helping her a second time. We learn her name is Phil, and she tells him, "I want to repay your kindness since you helped me twice." He tells her, "I don't want anything from you, just rely on God." But she insists on repaying his kindness since he helped. We see the little dragon bee is determined that Phil should come with them. So he tells her, "Fine, you can stay with me until I finish my task in the forest and go to the dwarf city." At that time, he asks her to gather the important resources available in the forest for him. But the forest girl keeps bringing him animal droppings, thinking they are rare items. And one day, when she changes her mind, she brings him poisonous mushrooms to finish him off. At night, they decide to camp in the forest, so Phil tells him, "What do you think about me going to gather some firewood for us to light a fire?" He tells her, "I have magic stones and don't need that firewood." She tells him, "We need to light the firewood so that if there are adventurers like us in the forest wanting to camp, they'll know this area is safe and there's no danger." Indeed, she gathers a large amount of firewood, immediately pulls out 2 daggers, flies into the air, flips and cuts the wood easily. Takaru is amazed that her skill with these daggers is so great. When he examines the daggers, he finds they are rare daggers of a certain level. After that, Takaru uses the magic stones to cook. When they sit down to eat, he learns that she also wants to go to the dwarf city. He tells her he is also going there to enter the Ryuahai mine and collect the rare dar stones, but she tells him, "I want to go there to look for the white-winged horse because my sister wants." So he gets an idea and tells her, "Since your skills with daggers are great, how about being my personal guard until I finish my task?" She, of course, likes the idea and agrees to repay his kindness after he helped her more than once. But the first guard duty task is a failure because she immediately leaves him sleeps and keeps snoring, leaving Takaru awake all night because of her snoring headache. The next day, they continue their journey and reach a small village. This village is located next to a river, so they decide to rest there today and continue their journey tomorrow to the dwarf kingdom. Of course, the first thing they do in the village is go in to eat, and the food is very delicious. When they talk to each other, Phil tells him she has a lizard friend, so Takaru tells her, "I also know a lizard friend." Indeed, the lizard friend is sitting behind them because they were talking about the fighter Clay, and when Clay sees Takaru, he says to him, "What are you doing here? And how did you leave the city without leaving me a message?" Takaru gets scared and tells him, "I informed the guild before I left and told them I'd be late." So Clay asks him, "Where exactly are you going and what do you want to do?" He tells him, "I'm going to the dwarf kingdom because I want to enter the Ryuahai mine and collect the rare dar stone." Clay tells him that mine is very dangerous and full of strong monsters, and you won't gain anything by entering. He tells him, "The blacksmith who asked me for the stone made it hard for me, and honestly, I wanted to finish this task for him." Clay tells him, "I hope that when you finish the task and bring him the stones he wants, your reward will be worth the trouble you'll see there." He tells him, "Don't worry, I agreed with him that he would make shears for me to use in gathering resources, and these shears will be very rare and specific to me." Clay laughs at the silly compensation Takaru is asking for. When he learns that Phil will be his escort during his journey, Clay decides then that he will also join them and tells him, "Well, teacher, you have 2 guards now, and don't be afraid because your task will be done very easily." At that moment, Takaru feels he has gotten himself into trouble and brought a headache upon himself and says, "I hope this journey ends well." The next day, they reach the dwarf city. As usual, there is a long queue in front of any city, but it's clear that the lizard Clay has many acquaintances because he talks to the guards and lets them pass without standing in the long queue. When they pass through the gate, Takaru is shocked that the city is literally underground and looks very strange. The guard tells Clay that the king, when he learned you were coming, wanted to see you and talk to you, and this of course because you are the great hero who saved us from the Thunder King Zenjum and finished him off. Takaru asks Clay about the Thunder King he defeated. So he starts telling him and says the dwarves are geniuses in blacksmithing but can't use weapons, and they were forced to pay him tribute every period. But as soon as that demon saw me passing by chance in front of him, he immediately ran away and left them. Because of this, the dwarves decided to make a statue of Clay in the middle of the city. But when Clay first saw it, it looked funny and he didn't like it at all. As soon as he reaches the king, Clay immediately goes to him and keeps shouting and arguing with him, saying, "What is that statue you made outside? It doesn't look like me at all." Takaru feels that the king and Clay are close. The king then asks Takaru, "Why have you come?" He tells him, "I have an important message for you." The message is sent from Gross, the head of the blacksmiths, and requests the king to give Takaru permission to enter the Yohai mine. Indeed, the king agrees immediately. Clay here tells the king, "I'm here and Phil and I are with Takaru to protect him during his task inside the Yohei mine." The king seizes the opportunity and tells them, "Since you are now entering the mine, please inspect it well because lately there have been many tremors in the city and we don't know the cause." But in the end he tells them, "My feeling tells me the demons are the cause of this tremor and I'm sure they are inside the mine." He sends a guide with them. As soon as they enter, the place is extremely dark. Takaru uses his light magic to illuminate the mine. Then he uses his search magic on the map to understand everything in it so no one gets lost inside. Phil here is surprised that he is using 2 incantations at the same time and tells him, "Clearly your skills are great." He begins to search for the Dar ore, but the magic energy is weak here and he feels it's not present. He says, "I need to go deeper into the mine to find the ore." But suddenly the dragon bee starts making noises that there is danger around them now. So he uses his search skill again and finds 2 monsters in front of them. They all start preparing to face these monsters and defeat them. Suddenly, two huge spiders appear and attack them, but Clay immediately stabs the first one with his spear. Takeru uses his lightning skill and scares away the second spider, asking Phil to finish it off quickly, so she flies with her knives and keeps cutting into them. Takeru continues on his way and goes deeper, starting to feel that the magic energy and barrier in this place are high, so he begins to suspect that the stone is definitely there. He tells the guide with them that he has now found the stone and will use his method to extract it, so he should step back a bit so no one gets hurt. He creates a magic barrier inside the mine so that when he uses his magic, he doesn't destroy it. Then he summons 3 fire orbs and uses explosion magic, directing them toward the place he wants to blow up, and finds a bunch of stones. But the guide with them tells him these aren't the stones he's looking for because Dar stones are very rare. He tries to find another way to find these rare stones, but suddenly B makes noise again and tells him to hurry. There's a monster coming at us. Suddenly the place shakes and they hear a sound and know it's the demon inside the mine. Takeru then tells them stay back and no one interferes. I'll handle him myself. Clay tells him you're crazy to face that monster alone, but Takeru is very confident that he can defeat and finish him off. Suddenly a huge crab appears, but this time of a different color. Takeru here is very happy to see it and says, this will be our new meal. We continue our story and see the dragon B is very happy that he will finally eat because he was hungry. Takeru tells him, calm down a bit until we finish him off and hunt him first. Of course, Phil and Clay say, what nonsense are they thinking? This is the time we should finish him off first so he doesn't kill us. But the foolish Takeru keeps dancing with B until the crab attacks them. However, Takeru manages to dodge his attack. We learn that this crab's name is Trejo and is known to be very strong and of a certain rank, and has previously defeated very strong adventurers. They ask Takeru to cooperate with him to finish it off, but Takeru refuses to let anyone interfere in the fight and tells them, this crab is mine because I'm going to eat it. Takeru asks the dragon B to support him, but on the condition that he doesn't use lightning or fire so as not to ruin his meal. He uses his enhancement skill and speed skill and rushes to attack the crab. Of course they call out to him not to rush the attack. The dragon bee uses sound waves in his attack and Takeru immediately seizes the opportunity that the crab is feeling a headache, jumps into the air and comes down with his staff on its head with a strong blow. But the shock is that his crab's body is very hard. After that, the crab stands up and delivers a blow that knocks him to the ground. When he tries to attack him, he dodges his attack with speed. Here, the dragon bee intervenes and uses ice waves, managing to freeze the crab's legs so it can't attack Takeru. After that, Takeru uses his scan skill to start examining the crab and learn its weak points and attack them. Then he uses his ice magic skill and summons very strong ice arrows, hitting the crab with them, and indeed succeeds in freezing it in place and finishing it off. At that moment, Phil and the guide who entered with them are utterly amazed by Takeru's magic and how he managed to finish off this crab and freeze it so easily. We see the lizard Clay is literally furious and wants to strangle Takeru and says to him, why did you attack this crab alone? Takeru here immediately apologizes and says, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, but I was afraid we'd use your weapons and then the crab would be inedible. Clay is surprised that Takeru wants to eat it and asks him, what's my role with you now? I'm supposed to be the personal guard and I should have a role with you in the mine here. He tells him, don't be upset, but I finished off this crab because I've faced one like it before, so I knew how to deal with it well. Clay tells him, you're right, your magic was amazing and insane, but you have to be careful next time and don't be hasty and rely on us, man, instead of fighting alone. After that, he tells him, don't worry, neither I nor Phil will object to any decision you make during combat. So Takeru apologizes for rushing and fighting the crab alone. Clay approaches him and says, never mind, teacher. Let's go pull this crab out of the mine now. After that, Takeru manages to collect a large amount of Dar ore, but he tells the guy that he feels a very strong magic energy inside. So if we go deeper into the mine, we can collect a large amount of Dar ore. The guide here can't believe himself and says, man, you finished off the crab that was driving our ancestors crazy, and you collected a huge amount of stones. What more do you want beyond that? He keeps thanking him for helping them. After that, we see Takeru happy and says, I tried to change everything in my own style, and I hope the changes I'm making in this world are positive. After that, they return to the king's palace. The guide here keeps praising Takeru and says, this amazing hero, may God enlighten him, easily finished off the demon that was inside and driving us crazy, and managed to defeat it. Takeru tells him, I finished my task and collected all the stones I wanted. The king, of course, is amazed that Takeru managed to defeat the monster he called a demon, which was driving them crazy in the kingdom, and says to him, I am happy you did that. He decides to reward Takeru and his friends for accomplishing the task. But Takeru opens his tool bag and takes out the giant crab and says, "My reward is to take this crab as a gift." After that, we see Phil talking to Takeru about the amount of money they collected and tells him 3 million coins is a lot. But our hero Takeru is in another world thinking about the crab he hunted and saying, "I wonder if its taste is as good as the previous one or not." Clay tells him, "Man, what are you thinking about? She's talking to you." He replies to her, so he tells him, "Do you think I can use the hard shell of this crab to make the shears I want to use for gathering resources?" The next day, we see one of the guards bringing a very beautiful horse white with wings. This horse is a reward from the king for them. When Phil first sees it, she likes its shape very much and is very happy with it because it's the same horse she wanted to get for her sister. They also make a new spear for the lizard Clay instead of his old one that broke. After that, Phil rides the white horse and decides to return to her world. She tells them, "I will give this horse to my little sister," and thanks Takeru for helping her and says she owes him many things. He tells her, "You don't have to repay the kindness. I'm happy I hunted this crab, and you're happy with the horse, meaning each of us is satisfied." After that, she reaches the carriage that Takeru and Clay will ride back in. After that, they bid farewell to Phil, and she tells them, "I'll see you very soon." Takeru returns later to the Adventurers Guild. When the clerk Ariana first sees him, she welcomes him and is surprised that Clay is with him. She asks him, "Did you meet by chance or did you form a team together again?" So Takeru tells her they met by chance, but Clay interrupts and tells her, "We formed a team together, but temporarily." Rihanna is happy that they formed a team together and runs to inform the guildmaster. After that, Clay looks at Takeru and says, "You surely won't mind me being with you." He tells him, "I've always been a wanderer with no specific destination, and I know you're not an ordinary human, so having someone look out for you and take care of you isn't a bad thing." Takeru thinks to himself and says, "If I form a team with Clay, it's not bad at all. On the contrary, Clay is always with me and supports me, and traveling with him will definitely be enjoyable." After that, they sit together to choose a name for their team. Clay suggests the name be the Blue Brigade. It's clear he likes the color blue because it's like his color. After that, Takeru goes to the blacksmith's workshop and delivers the dar ore he brought from the mine. We see Gross and Ripple looking at the ore and shaking. It's clear they are terrified or shocked by something. Takeru, of course, looks at them not understanding anything and says if the stones were too pure, would they have difficulty making swords? But he finally learns that they can't believe their own happiness that they finally found the rare stone they were looking for. Ripple tells him, "I'm happy we chose you for this task and you succeeded in it." She tells him the dar ore is very pure and also hard and ideal for making swords. Gross here says, "We haven't seen this amount of dar ore in one place for 120 years. Takeru thinks, knowing it's high quality, but didn't expect them to be so affected. Ripple tells him, "With this amount, it's impossible to give you your due at all." Takeru tells her, "The compensation isn't important now. The important thing is that you take the stones and make an amazing sword that can win first prize in the exhibition you want to hold." He tells them, "My reward, as we agreed, is the shears I can use to gather resources, nothing more." After that, when Takeru is sitting with Clay, happy, someone comes and says they've been looking for him since early morning, and he has a message from an important person. Takeru takes the message and looks at it. From the seal, Clay says it's an emblem from the house of Lucifas. So, Takeru is surprised and says, could the message be from Lord Balkane? He's afraid this message might bring many troubles, so he starts making strange movements to show he's tired and doesn't want to. Clay knows he's pretending so as not to go there, but the messenger reassures him and says, "The Lord you will meet is good and never causes trouble with anyone." It's written in the message that he wants to meet Clay and Takeru to honor them for their achievement. But Takeru is still anxious and uneasy, feeling there's something behind this beyond just the honoring. Clay here starts to be convinced by Takeru's words and says to him, "You're right, because rarely do any of the nobles and rich people decide to honor a group of unknown adventurers like us whom no one knows." Clay starts to scare Takeru, saying he might want your dragon bee. But Takeru gets very worried and afraid for the dragon and says, "I won't let anyone take it from me." The messenger tells him, "Don't worry, I told you this lord is very good and doesn't cause trouble, and moreover he doesn't have the authority to take bee from you." Clay tells Takeru, "I don't want you to be afraid, I'm coming with you side by side." So Takeru starts to feel reassured and says, "Alright, as long as you're coming with me, I'm not afraid of anything." They move after that in the royal carriage and all the people look at them on the road, utterly amazed. Takeru is surprised why they're looking at them like that. Clay tells him it's everyone's dream here to ride the royal carriage and meet the Lord. Takeru starts to calm down and is convinced by Clay's words. After that, they reach the palace and someone named Raymond is there to receive them. Takeru, of course, is shocked and happy that all these people are waiting to welcome him. After that, a spoiled little girl approaches Takeru and says, "So this is the little dragon. I thought it would be smart, but it looks stupid." "Oh well, no problem." She immediately orders Takeru to hand over the dragon to her now. Takaru is shocked and hides behind him. After that, Takaru tells the spoiled girl that she's not speaking nicely, but she replies and says, "Dragons are considered noble creatures and shouldn't be with an ordinary adventurer like you. I should be the one to raise." We learn the little girl's name is Tyrese, the Lord's only daughter, so it's clear she's very spoiled. After that, Takaru uses his scan skill to find out what's exactly in this girl's mind. We learn she is 14 years old and completing her studies in the royal capital. Here, Takaru is puzzled about how to deal with a little child like her and asks her, "Why do you want my dragon?" She says, "Bernard told me an adventurer would come with a dragon, so I wanted it." So he says to her, "So Bernard told you that?" She says, "Yes." She also tells him, "He also told me that with any adventurer I meet, I must deal with them strictly and seriously and never joke with them. He said if I do that, anyone will be afraid of me and will listen to me immediately." But Takaru approaches her, smiles, and says, "I'm sorry I can't give you the dragon bee because it's special to me." Later, when the girl learns his name is Bee, she becomes very happy and calls to him. The dragon bee laughs with her, so she says, "All right, since he laughed and talked with me, then he's mine." After that, she apologizes to Takaru for the bad way she spoke to him. Bee then goes to her and plays with her. She is surprised that he understands human language and asks him to forgive her for the way she spoke to him. Takaru asks her, "Why are you so interested in the dragon?" She tells him, "I want to show it to my mother." Suddenly, the Lord, her father, arrives and calls for. When Takaru first sees him, he is surprised that he is very handsome. He goes to Takaru, greets him, and says, "So you are the resource-gathering adventurer." He begins to introduce himself, and we learn this lord's name is Belmont, the Lord of Balsam City. After that, he sits with them, and they drink tea together. He apologizes for his daughter's treatment of them. Then Clay starts asking the Lord, "What is the reason for the visit, and why did you bring us to you?" He tells him, "I want you for a service, and this service is related to my wife." Clay knows that the Lord's wife has been sick for 6 months. At that moment, the Lord tells Takaru, "I've heard many rumors about you, that there was a sick man in the village and you were the only one who could cure him." He keeps begging Takaru to use his power to heal his wife because she is sick and has no cure currently. But Takaru here is afraid and keeps thinking. He says, "I do have strong magic, and when I used it on Clay I managed to evolve him, so I'm afraid to use it on the Lord's wife and cause her problems." After that, the Lord tells him his daughter wanted the dragon for her mother's. Takaru says, "What does the dragon bee have to do with your sick wife?" He tells him, "My daughter is traveling to the royal capital in a few days, and she wanted this dragon to give to her mom, maybe to lift her spirits and help her get." Takaru is hesitant and afraid to help him because he's a lord, and if something goes wrong, he'll be in big trouble. But in the end, he decides to help him and asks to see his wife. After that, the Lord takes them to his wife's room and tells her, "This is the adventurer I told you about, and God willing, he can help you." Takaru notices the room is dark, so he says, "Why don't you open the window a bit to lighten it up?" He tells him his wife is forbidden from exposure to sunlight. Takaru approaches her and uses his scan skill on her. We learn her name is Amos. She is 32 years old. And she also has very serious diseases like difficulty walking, anemia, and some poisonings and mutations. It's clear her condition is very bad, which is why the Lord asks him, "Can you heal her or not? What are your conditions?" Takaru tells him, "I can heal very light diseases like joint pain and stomach disorders, but I haven't tried the strange diseases your wife has." He is afraid to use his magic on her so she doesn't get any complications. We see the princess tells the Lord, "I agree with any decision you make." She says, "All I wish for is to hug my daughter one last time before I die." So at that moment, the prince asks Takaru to start the treatment immediately. Takaru here gets excited and says, "God help us, I hope she doesn't die in our hands." We continue our story and see the prince begging Takaru and asking him to hurry up to heal his wife before she gets complications and dies. At that moment, the lizard Clay says to him, "Are you going to use the healing incantation you used on me last time?" He tells him, "The incantation I used on you was a concentrated healing incantation, and the mana in it is very strong. If I use it on her, she'll get complications and might die." Takaru thinks of a way to get rid of the darkness in the room and tries to let any light in. He says to her, "Since the lights affect your eyes and tire you, let me look at them first and examine them." He starts using his healing skill on her eyes. Of course, everyone is anticipating and waiting for the result. Takaru says, "If I increase my mana energy quickly during the healing, she'll feel very tired, so I'll try to let the mana flow slow." When Takaru finishes the healing magic, we are surprised that the princess opens her eyes and can see everything around her. At that moment, the prince is happy and keeps crying. After that, Tajiro uses his cleansing skill and cleans the entire room of any dust or germs present. At that moment, the room lights up and becomes spick and span. The princess is surprised that the light, when it first enters the room, doesn't affect her eyes and that she can see well. At that moment, the lizard Clay thanks him and says, God enlighten you. You made a tremendous effort. But Takeru looks like he's focused and something is bothering him. When Takeru sits with the prince, he tells him every period doses of poison enter the princess's body. He tells him the name of the poison in the princess's body is poison. The prince, of course, doesn't know what poison is or who is trying to get rid of the princess and giving her doses of this poison. So Takeru tells him it's not far-fetched that the person who wants to poison the princess is here in your palace. The prince is shocked when he learns that someone in the palace might want to poison the princess and get rid of her. Takeru tells him, we need to look for the antidote to heal the princess, but I don't know exactly where the antidote for this poison is. The prince tells him that poison is a forbidden poison lost to time, and its use is prohibited anyway. Takeru, of course, is shocked when he first hears this, but refuses to give up and says, surely the antidote exists somewhere, but we don't know it. The lizard says to him, since this poison existed in ancient times in the Middle Ages, surely there are books that can lead us to its location. The prince brings out a collection of ancient books he inherited from his ancestors and tells him, look through them, you might find the location of the poison. He uses his search skill to distinguish the book talking about poison until he actually finds it. But the book talking about poison is written in a very strange and funny voice, so Takeru is forced to read the book in the same voice as the person who wrote it. The prince and Clay are very surprised by the voice. Takeru tells them, I have no choice. I have to speak in this voice. Indeed, they manage to determine the location of the poison and learn that it is a very rare flower and the poison is extracted from it. But the prince tells them the place where the flower exists is very far away, and they need about 5 days. Takeru says they must move quickly so as not to waste time. After that, we see Takeru placing a magic stone next to the princess's room. When they ask him what he's doing, he says, these are security measures. Anyone who approaches the princess's room will trigger a sound and an alarm. He did this, of course, to protect her from any assassination attempts during his absence. Suddenly, we find Therese calling to Takeru and saying, wait before you leave, I want to tell you something. When she comes to him, she apologizes for the bad treatment she gave him, especially since he is the only one who helped her mother. She says, I thought you were an evil adventurer, but it turns out you are very kind. Takeru approaches her and says, I'm not upset about your harsh words, but the important thing is for you to think carefully afterward and distinguish between good and evil people, and don't rush to speak without thinking so you don't upset anyone. He tells her, I'm confident that when I leave, someone will come talk to you and tell you Takeru is an evil person, but I don't want you to believe them, and know that the person who told you that wants to hurt you or your mother. After that, Takeru takes Clay, bids them farewell, and sets off for the village where the poison flower appears. At that time, Takeru uses his acceleration skill and makes the carriage run at an incredible speed. After that, they reach the village, but the shock here is that the village is a barren desert with no plants or water. Clay says this land was agricultural, so how did it turn into a desert like this? They learn that next to this village there should be a lake, and they say it's impossible for the lake to have dried up too. But when they continue their journey, they reach the lake and are surprised that its color is very strange. As soon as B examines it, he learns that someone deliberately polluted this water so no one could use it. Suddenly, a group of the village's inhabitants appear, and they look utterly miserable. Takeru approaches them and tries to reassure them, saying, we are a group of adventurers and we came looking for something here. Of course they don't believe them, but Clay shows the guild bracelet so they can confirm they are adventurers. Takeru tells them, we came looking for a rare material. But suddenly, one of the villagers collapses from exhaustion, and they learn they don't eat well and also don't bathe, and the village has literally been like this for a long time. They learn the village has been in this state for 10 months, and they can't find food or know how to farm or do anything at all. Even the well they used to drink from dried up and has nothing left. But suddenly, a merchant named Anjesh appears to them and says, I'm ready to help the village in exchange for you collecting the flowers called Ivor. Ivor flowers are the distinguished flowers in the village because their color is golden and very beautiful, but they didn't know their benefits or whether they were poisonous or not. But they of course agreed to his offer and were exchanging these flowers for barrels containing water to drink. However, this water wasn't enough for the village inhabitants to use for agriculture and drink from. And this is the reason that led the people to this state of hunger and drought. So Takeru starts to confirm that the merchant Aang is the reason this village reached drought, that he ruined the lake's water and caused all these calamities. But the village inhabitants tell him, why are you calling him an evil person? He was the only one giving us water barrels in exchange for collecting the flowers he wanted. He tells them, when I examined the lake, I confirmed that someone deliberately polluted the water. He tells them, what is Anjesh's interest in collecting these poisonous flowers? The village inhabitants are surprised because they didn't know the flowers were poisonous, so they start to fear and say, what should we do now? How will we live after this? But Takeru decides to help them and asks B to use her sound waves to start gathering clouds next to each other and make it rain. indeed be amidst sound waves, and we find it starting to rain on the village inhabitants. After that, he uses his cleansing skill on the inhabitants in the entire city, literally protecting all of them and making the city spick and span. After that, he uses his repair skill to fix the broken houses and set everything right. Of course, the prince doesn't stop there. He takes out from his tool bag a pot almost 50 meters long. You don't know how he got it out, and starts making food for them in enormous quantities because the village was literally in a famine and hadn't eaten for a long time. The village inhabitants start eating and celebrating, and they are extremely happy with Takeru. After they eat, they talk to the village sage and ask him to collect large quantities of the air flower so they can make the antidote and heal the princess. The sage, of course, agrees and tells them, "This is the least thing I can offer you for the great help you gave us from the moment you arrived." A group of children decide to take Takeru to their secret place and tell him, "We'll show you something you've never seen before." Takeru agrees and goes with the children to their secret place. They have gathered a very strange fruit shaped like berries, and a liquid comes out of it, but they don't like to eat it. Our hero Takeru loves to try everything, so he starts examining the fruit first to make sure it's safe and not poisonous. When he first tastes the liquid, it tastes very delicious and is like the soy sauce we use on food. We return later to the palace and find the alarm bell has rung. The Princess Tyrese runs quickly to her mother's room to check on her, remembering Takeru's words when he said that if the alarm bell rings, it means someone has approached her mother's room. She finds one of the servants standing at her door, so she tells him, "What are you doing here?" "You must have come to hurt my mother," he says. "Who told you this nonsense?" She says, "Takeru told me if an alarm bell rings, it means someone with bad intentions wants to hurt my mother." He tells her, "So you believe the adventurer who came for the first time, whom we don't know, over one of your servants who has been serving you for years?" He tries, of course, to brainwash her and trick her to convince her that Takeru is an evil adventurer. The poor girl seems to start being convinced by his words and doesn't know what to do until the prince comes and takes the servant and his daughter to his office. He tells the servant, "I understand you've been with us for a long time working, and it's very difficult for us to suspect you and believe Takeru, and Takeru might indeed be trying to trick." The servant is happy that he managed to deceive the prince too, until someone enters with a bottle of water and says to him, "Drink the medicine you always give the princess. You always tell us this drink is what heals the princess and improves her health, so I want you to drink it in front of me." The servant, of course, refuses and confesses that it contains poison, but the prince is actually tricking him and has brought plain water. After that, they search him and find a letter with him. When the prince first reads this letter, he is utterly shocked, but we don't know its content. After that, the merchant Anjesh, we see him arriving at the sage's house but doesn't find him there. Someone from the inhabitants comes and tells him, "What do you want from him?" He tells him, "I came to collect my batch of OVERPOWERED." But he replies and tells him he's not here now. He went out on a mission with a group of adventurers. They say, "I heard these flowers are poisonous, and from now on we won't collect these flowers again and won't give them to anyone." The merchant Anjesh tells him, "It's not up to you, teacher. We'll take them by force." He has brought a group of thugs with him. We see the prince's guards arresting the servant, but we find him sitting and smiling as if his plan is going perfectly. After that, we see Takeru and Clay walking with the street sage, and they are inside a strange cave. But as soon as they finish this cave, they find in front of them a huge garden containing ivory flowers. We continue our story and see Takeru later standing in front of a large number of flowers, shocked. When he starts examining them, he learns they are indeed called ivory flowers and also contain the poison he is looking for to make the antidote. We learn that these flowers grew due to the tears of a very strong warrior who was responsible for protecting the village and the entire lake, and was in a fierce battle against the Demon King. After that, she turned into the horse form we see now and disappeared. After that, Takeru asks the village sage for permission to start collecting these flowers. The sage, of course, agrees because Takeru helped them a lot. After collecting quantities from them, he says, "All that's left is for me to return to Balkame City to make the antidote and heal the princess immediately." Suddenly, one of the city's inhabitants calls the village sage and tells him, "Hurry, the village is on fire and being destroyed." Immediately, they run out to see what's happening. They find the village literally on fire and destroyed. Immediately, Takeru asks Clay to take care of the villagers and asks me to help him put out the fire. Using his magic, he manages to put out the fire burning in the village. After that, he reassures them that there are no casualties or injured, and that the matter ended. But he tells him that the one who did this is the merchant Anjesh because he asked us for ivory flowers, and when we learned they contained poison, we refused to give him what he wanted. At that time, he brought a group of bandits and set the village on fire to kill us all. When Takeru learns he set the village on fire, he is very upset, but the greater disaster is that the village sage comes and tells him that the child Genza is not with us and has probably been kidnapped as a hostage. One of the village inhabitants tells him, I saw the merchant Anjish take Genza to flee with him and use him as a hostage to bargain with us, so we give him the ivory flowers. So Takeru gets very angry here and decides to go look for him. Immediately he uses his search magic at the highest level and manages to pinpoint his location, learning he is in the abandoned fortress and that the merchant Anjesh is there with 100 bandits. Immediately he decides to go there and takes Clay. They tell him, be careful because the merchant Anjesh is very cunning and has criminals with him. Don't worry, I have the fighter Clay who is rank S with me. They go immediately towards the abandoned fortress. When they arrive there, they think of a plan to enter. But at that moment, we see the lizard Clay has transformed into his demonic form due to his great anger. And he tells Takeru, let's go now to finish them. But Takeru tells him calm down a bit because if we think of fighting them then, they might hurt Genza or finish him off. And we want to accomplish this task in complete secrecy without anyone noticing us. He keeps thinking of a way to enter the fortress without anyone sensing them until he gets an idea to use invisibility magic. Indeed, he performs invisibility magic on himself and Clay, and they enter inside, knocking out the guards at the gate. The guards look utterly drunk. Clay is happy that Takeru's plan succeeded and that they disappeared and no one saw them. Clay keeps telling Takeru, God enlighten you. Clearly you know all kinds of magic in this world. He tells him this is no time for boasting at all. We have to move now to save Genza. They search in many places but don't know where he is. Clay tells him, what do you think about us going in and beating them up so they tell us where he's hid? At the same time, we see the bandits with Anjish celebrating that they burned the village, but unfortunately the village inhabitants refuse to tell them where the ivory flowers are. So they decide to bargain with them using Genza until they tell them where their ivory flowers are. They have prepared a plan to inflate the price of the ivory poison, saying the princess is now infected with this poison and no doctor can heal her, and the only treatment for her is the ivory poison. So the prince might pay huge sums to obtain. The merchant Anjesh stands up and hits the one talking too much, saying, this matter is secret and shouldn't be talked about openly. At that moment Takeru is standing outside and hears their entire plan. He asks Clay to go in and teach them a lesson and give them a proper beating without killing any of them. Immediately, Clay enters, excited, and keeps hitting them, giving them a proper. At that moment, Takeru is inside and hears the merchant Anjesh saying where Genza is, and learns he is in an external building outside the fortress. As soon as he arrives, he finds one of the guards at the door. The dragon bee tells him, leave this one to me and I'll handle the. Immediately she attacks him and gives him a strong blow, breaking the door. As soon as he enters, he keeps calling him until he finds him imprisoned inside a cell. Immediately he turns his hand into a very strong shield, breaks the lock on the door and opens it for the boy Genza to get him out. Genza, when he first sees him, of course keeps crying and can't believe himself. As soon as he gets out, he finds the bandits running everywhere, very afraid. When he looks at the fortress, he sees the hands of the Demon King coming out of the fortress. It's clear there is a fierce battle with Clay, and he knows this is the lake demon that destroyed the entire village. He says, I can't fight him while carrying the child Genza. He tries to find a way to protect the child Genza, and at the same time free himself to fight the Demon King. He creates a magic barrier around them to protect them from any attack. When he enters the fortress, he finds Clay fighting with the Demon King, and Clay is enjoying the fight very much. When he uses his scan skill on him, he learns it is a sea monster, and its hands contain poison, and anyone who touches them dies immediately. He learns that the one who summoned this demon is the merchant Anjesh. But at the same time, we see Aang sitting on the ground. Takeru approaches him and says, aren't you the one who did this and summoned him? At the same time, the Demon King extends one of his hands and attacks Takeru, but he manages to dodge his attack. After that, he creates a magic barrier around the merchant Anjesh to protect him from the Demon King's attack. But his blow is strong and makes him lose consciousness. After that, Takeru tells Clay, I finished the task and have the child Genza. Let's leave quick. He tells him, I can't leave until I teach him a lesson. As you can see, he's holding me with his hand, and unfortunately he has many hands, and no matter how many I cut, they don't end. So at that moment, Takeru decides to help him and uses ice magic, managing to freeze all these hands and stop them from moving. He asks Clay to give him a very strong blow to his face to finish him off because the sensation center is in his face. Immediately, Clay doesn't wait and attacks him with a very strong blow, but the Demon King clearly isn't affected. On the contrary, he gets angrier and attacks Takeru with all his hands, giving him a strong blow that sends him flying out of the fort. Takeru immediately grabs the child Genza and throws him to Bee, telling him, take care of him and don't let him go at all. He falls immediately into the poison lake. At that moment, we see the sorcerer who brought him to this world telling Takeru, Since you arrived in this world, you've always done good and positive things, and falling into the poison lake is very difficult, and I honestly want to help you and don't want you to die. At the same time, Takeru also doesn't want to die and says, I was really enjoying myself in this world, and honestly I want to try the soy sauce I saw in the village here. He says, I met very good and kind friends. He says, I wanted to see the growth stages of the dragon bee before I... When the sorcerer learns of Takeru's desire to live, he decides to help him. We see the warrior who disappeared, who transformed into a horse, grabbing Takeru from the water and pulling him out of the lake. Takeru says to her, Good evening, may I know who you are? She tells him, I am the warrior Hoff. He says to her, I've heard this name before. Do you live here or what? She tells him, I am the warrior who disappeared a while ago after my battle with the Demon King. She tells him, look what you... Takeru is surprised that the lake, which was dark and black and the land around it was a desert, has turned into green land and the water has become pure, literally. After that, she tells him, the reason for my disappearance was that the lake was poisoned and my strength completely weakened, and when you fell into the water, you managed to purify it of the toxins present, so I returned to life. She tells him, before I leave, I planted these ivory flowers to preserve the lake so it doesn't disappear forever. After that, Clay and the child go to Takeru and ask him, are you okay? He tells them, don't worry about me, I'm fine thanks to the warrior Hoff. He tells them she's the one who saved me from death. She replies to him and says, you saved me too. Clay here says to him, who are you talking to? We learn that Takeru is the only one who can hear the warrior Hoff while she is in horse form. After that, she thanks Takeru for helping her and disappears. They return again to the village and of course they are happy that the child is back safe and sound and thank Takeru saying, we don't know how to repay you for these favors. You keep helping us like this and being so generous with us. After that, he places magic stones in the ground to perform an incantation and return quickly to the palace. Indeed, they disappear and return to the palace. Takeru continues cooperating with the palace's special pharmacy. He manages to manufacture the antidote and immediately the princess drinks the antidote and indeed gets better and becomes well. When he examines her again, he confirms the poison has disappeared from her body. The prince and his daughter keep crying that the princess has finally recovered and become well. After that, Takeru returns to the village again, and they start repairing it anew after it was... Takeru tells him, we have already captured Aang and handed him over to the prince, and now he is being tried. At that moment, the village sage tells him, we want to do any service for you in return for what you did for us. He tells them, I need the fruit that contains soy sauce. Indeed, after that, he makes a delicious meal and puts soy sauce on it, giving it to the village sage to try. When he first eats it, he likes its taste very much. Takeru asks him to make an entire farm specifically for this fruit so Takeru can use it later and make large quantities of soy sauce from it, and he lets all the village inhabitants try this fruit, and indeed they like it. After that, he bids them farewell and he returns later to Balsam City. Takeru tells Clay, lately, I've started seeing hallucinations. I also see hallucinations like you. When they look at the sun, they find the warrior Hoff coming out of it in horse form and descending to them on the ground. Clay says to her, what are you doing here? She tells him, I lived in Balsam City for many, many years. After that, she transforms into her human form. When they first see her in human form, they are very shocked. She shocks them again later when she tells them, I will continue the journey with you. She says experiencing adventure with Takeru is a very beautiful thing, and I'm confident I'll enjoy it with you. She tells him, this way, you'll have a means of transportation. If you need any horse for travel, I can transform into horse form and take you anywhere you want. Takeru, of course, is not happy and feels he has gotten into trouble, and that Hoff will cause him a lot of annoyance and problems in the future. We continue our story, and Takeru later returns to the head blacksmith and tells him, I brought you all the magic resources you wanted. Make me the resource gathering shears I requested from you. The head blacksmith tells him, with the rare magic resources you brought me, I managed to make the legendary sword and enter the competition with it. He says, as promised, I will make you legendary magic shears that no one has seen before. Takeru is very happy. When he goes out, he finds Hoff standing in front of him, and she tells him, finished your work? He says, yes, and asks her about the reason for her presence now. She tells him, I came here in case you need any help or anything, and if the old man inside hasn't finished the thing you want, I'm ready to go in and give him a beating, so he hurries up. He tells her don't exaggerate the matter to that extent. He tells her secretly that he regretted letting her join his team and says, I don't need anyone's help and I handle my work well. She apologizes to him for interfering in his work and tells him, come on, let's go to a restaurant now to eat potatoes with butter because they taste very good. Takeru is surprised here and says to her, do you eat human food normally like that? She says, yes, because it tastes good. She tells him the dragon bee with you, even though he's not human, is very gluttonous and loves to eat human food in large quantities. The dragon bee gets angry with her and wants to argue with her. Suddenly, a guild employee calls to him and says, "I need you for an important matter." When he goes to sit with them in the guild, they tell him, "We want you in a very important competition." Hoff here, when she learns there's a competition, tells Takeru, "I want to participate with you." He tells her, "Be quiet, let me find out what the competition is first." He tells the employee, "I'm not into competitions. I'm someone who gathers resources and I'm not interested in anything else." They tell him there is a recommendation from a specific person who wants you to participate in this competition. When he asks them who this person is, he learns it is the Prince of Balsam City. They tell him he is the sponsor of this competition and is responsible for it. Takeru doesn't want to upset him and indeed decides to participate in the competition. Later we see the guild master gathering all the adventurers around him. Clay here is surprised that the number of participants in the competition is very large. The guildmaster tells them this competition is very important because it's sponsored by the prince. He tells them, on the occasion of the princess's recovery from the rare disease she had, the prince decided to make a very beautiful dress for her and wants to make this dress from a specific and very rare wool. These sheep exist somewhere, but no one knows their exact location. Your task, heroes, is to try to reach these colored sheep to collect their wool so the king can later use it to make a dress for the princess. Takeru hears about the colored sheep for the first time and says, "I wonder where they are located." We later begin to learn the competition rules. No one is allowed to seek help from friends at all during the task, and the adventurer must perform the task alone. He tells them that all adventurers from all categories can participate in this competition regardless of rank. We see all the adventurers excited to participate in this competition. Clay tells Takeru, "This task will be easy for you because you can use your instant teleportation skill and reach these sheep very easily and be the first one." But Takeru says, "If I use magic, the adventurers will be very upset and will feel the matter is unfair, and I honestly want the competition to be fair." Takeru asks B to stay with Clay until he finishes the competition, but B is very attached to him and doesn't want to leave him. Keeps crying and making a scene until Hoff grabs and hugs him. And suddenly the dragon bee calms down and then falls asleep. So Takeru says to her, "What exactly did you do to him?" She tells him, "I transferred doses of magic mana to him to calm him down, and the mana energy made him relax, so he fell asleep." Hoff tells Takeru, "You can go to the competition reassured about B because I will take good care of him." Takeru thanks her and immediately uses his speed skill and runs quickly to search for the sheep. But the first thing Takeru does after that is go to the library to gather any information about the colored sheep and the places they are located in. He learns they are on top of a huge and rare snow mountain, and indeed decides to go there using speed magic. On his way to the mountain, he is very worried about B and says, "This is the first time I go on a mission alone without him, and I wonder how he is doing now." He says, "I know B loves food, so I hope they don't give him too much food so when I return, I don't find him fat." Later, we see the dragon bee sitting and eating, very worried about Takeru. Hoff tells him, "I'm surprised you're worried about someone who possesses great magical power and no one can defeat." She tells him, "If you were with him, you would have been a hindrance and he would have taken more time than he wanted." He gets angry with her and says, "Leave me alone. It's enough that I've tolerated you until now." They are about to argue with each other, but Clay intervenes and calms them down, telling them, "Stay calm until Takeru returns from his mission. I don't want any headaches." We return to Takeru, who decides to rest at night in the middle of the forest, protecting himself with a magic barrier and preparing a proper meal to give him energy so he can continue the journey. The next day, Takeru reaches the mountain and finds the colored sheep he is looking for. When he uses his search skill, he learns all the information about them and how to deal with them. Indeed, he starts whistling to them in a specific way, and the sheep immediately gather around him. One of the sheep immediately lies down and says, "Take my wool, teacher, as you wish." Takeru starts collecting the wool and notices the wool is soft and very beautiful. The first time he's touched, we see two adventurers who have just arrived and see the magic sheep gathered around Takeru, not understanding how he managed to gather them in such large numbers and deal with them so easily. When he is returning, he sees a giant dragon flying in the sky and says, "Will the dragon bee become as huge as that one day?" As soon as he returns, the dragon bee flies to him, keeps crying and wipes all the snot. After that, the guildmaster announces that Takeru is the winner of the competition because he was the fastest to collect the colored sheep's wool. Later, they sit with him and thank him for participating in the competition. They decide later to promote him in rank and tell him, "When you are promoted, you will of course be able to accept missions with higher pay, and at the same time, the resources you collect you can sell at higher prices than before." But they tell him you have to be careful about the prices of the resources you want to sell, because if you sell your resources at prices higher than normal, you will ruin our markets, and then you will be permanently expelled from the guild. They give him the bracelet for his new rank. Suddenly, a guild employee enters shouting and tells them there is a giant forest worm on its way to the city, and if it enters the city at that speed, it will destroy. Immediately, Takeru and his friends go in front of the forest, and indeed they hear a huge commotion and start preparing to face it. Suddenly, the giant worm emerges from the middle of the forest, and Hoff is surprised by its huge size. But after seconds, Takeru is shocked to see that the one controlling the giant worm is the adventurer Brout. Brout, when she first sees them, is surprised and welcomes them. After that, she gets down from the worm and runs to Takeru to welcome him. But as usual, she smells bad. Immediately, Takeru uses cleansing magic on her to clean her first and says to her, "Why are you riding this huge worm and destroying the entire forest with it?" She tells him, "You were looking for a horse to move with, so I returned to my city and got this giant worm for you." Of course, the worm smells bad, so he again uses cleansing magic on it, but clearly the worm doesn't like to bathe and immediately runs to hide underground and escape. We see Hoff here telling Brout if Takeru wants to look for a horse, he will definitely choose the legendary horse, meaning of course herself. Brout, when she first sees her, recognizes exactly who she is and knows she is the legendary horse. After that, they sit together to celebrate and eat, and Takeru starts telling her everything since he left her, forming a team with Clay, then went to collect rare resources, then went to heal the prince's wife until he met Hoff, and she joined his team. After Brout hears everything, she offers to Takeru to join his team. He tells her, "Of course I agree for you to be with us." She tells him, "Be careful, I also, when I returned to the city, trained and did many missions until I was promoted to a certain rank." She shows him the bracelet on her arm for her rank. But strangely, Hoff is not interested at all in anything Brout says and feels that Brout has a secret inside her, or something she is hiding and doesn't want to tell anyone. Brout here tells her that Hoff is right and asks Takeru to help her look for her sister. We learn that her sister was the priestess of their village and was forced into marriage, but she didn't accept it, so she left their village and ran away. What bothers Brout is not that her sister ran away. What bothers her is that before she left, she didn't tell her anything or even say goodbye before leaving her. Brout tells them her sister set conditions for marriage and that whoever wants to marry her must bring her the rare white horse. So they decide to help her and go with her to the elf village to bring her sister back and look for her. On their way through the forest, Brout tells them, "I can make a shortcut through my magic, and it will take us to the elf world quickly, but we must enter the forest so no one notices the magic I will perform." Hoff here tells them, "Leave this matter to me." She transforms into horse form, and the three of them ride on her and fly quickly into the forest. As soon as they enter the forest, she immediately performs an incantation from a black magic circle and tells them, "As soon as you touch it, you will immediately enter our world." As soon as she touches it, she disappears immediately. Later, we see Clay and the dragon bee touch it, and they also disappear. Hoff is surprised here by the magic circle Brout made because its color is black, and she feels there is something strange about it. She tells Takeru, "Are you so confident in her?" She tells him, "You have to be very careful because I feel something is not normal." After that, the two of them touch the magic gate and disappear, arriving in the elf world. Takeru is surprised that the world looks very strange and beautiful, but strangely, all his friends are in a mess upon arriving in the elf world. He decides to use cleansing magic on them. But before using his magic, we see a group of arrows shooting at them. Immediately, Takeru uses magic and creates a magic barrier to protect them from the arrow attack. Brout here, when she catches the arrows, recognizes they are from their village. Suddenly, two elves come and say, "We felt something strange in our teleportation gate, so we thought there were intruders, and we didn't expect you to come with them." Takeru starts thinking about Hoff's words and feels she was right when she told him not to trust Brout completely. We continue our story and see one of the elves standing with his guards reading a message carved on the ground, threatening the entire elf race that they will be eliminated and exploited to serve other races. We return to Takeru and his friends later and see the guards threatening Brout and saying to her, "How did you bring strangers here to our kingdom?" Brout tells them, "The people with me are not strangers. They are my friends." She tells them, "I brought them to help us." They tell her, "It's not your right to make the decision yourself, and you know the laws of our kingdom well. Strangers are strictly forbidden from entering." One of the guards stands up insulting them, calling them evil. This angers Hoff greatly. She goes outside the magic barrier and says to him, "Do you mean me? You call me evil?" She says, "Since you call me evil, let me show you evil myself." Immediately, she transforms into her legendary horse form. When they first see her, they know she is the legendary horse. After that, Hoff uses lightning magic and electrocutes them all. Later, we find them sitting on the ground, apologizing to her after, of course, their hair stood on end from the electric shock they received. They tell her, "We didn't know who you were, and we're very sorry." After that, Takeru approaches them and introduces himself, telling them, "I am an adventurer," and shows them his rank. He tells them, "The people with me are my friends, and we come in peace, not in." The guards apologize to them for the last time and welcome them, telling them, "Come, we'll show you our world and invite you to our home." On their way through the forest, Takeru is very amazed by its shape because it contains strange magical creatures and birds he sees for the first time. But Hoff at that moment feels something strange and tells Takeru, the magic mana present in this forest is not natural and is full of strange magical elements. They finally reach a giant tree. This tree is called the life tree of the elf. We see Clay unable to breathe due to the magical pressure present in the place. The guards here refuse to enter with them because they smell bad. Immediately, Takeru takes out his magic staff and uses his cleansing magic on everyone present and cleans them. They are surprised that Takeru's cleansing magic is very strong because the magical pressure present in the place lessened and Clay managed to breathe normally. After that, they learn there is a very large palace inside the Tree of Life where the high elves and nobles live. Of course, this shocks them because it means Brout is one of the nobles but was hiding it from them. Brout here apologizes to them for hiding it from. Takeru asks her, why were you hiding it from us in the first place? Clay tells him the elf race is a very rare race and they always value their lineage and don't like to mix with anyone, which is why they had laws forbidding anyone from leaving the kingdom, especially if they are from the nobles. Takeru here approaches her and comforts her, telling her there's no problem with you leaving the kingdom because you were looking for your sister and wanted to reach her, and that in itself is a very noble thing, and no one could possibly be upset that you did that. Hoff goes to her and tells her, stop crying, and let's go now so we don't waste time. We're supposed to have come with you to help you. Later, they enter the palace, which looks very beautiful from the inside. Later, Brout's sister comes and welcomes them. Her name is Amber, and she invites them to a tea party. After welcoming them, when Takeru uses his search skill on the tea, he learns it is tea of a very rare type and was also present in the human world before. Later, Brout's brother comes and calls for her. As soon as she runs to him to hug him, he immediately runs away from her and says, your arms are very strong, and if you hug me, I'll be crushed and nothing will be left of me. After that, Brout introduces him to Takeru and everyone present. Takeru here notices his name is very difficult, and honestly I decided his name will be Cell because its pronunciation is difficult. Even Takeru can't pronounce it and decides to shorten the name. Later, Cell bows to Hoff and says, I can't believe the legendary horse queen is here in our kingdom. We should have been informed so we could prepare a proper reception for you. When Cell goes to greet Takeru, Takeru notices he is very short and his hand is small, so Cell tells him, I don't want you to be afraid or worried. We the elf race are a rare race, and among us, some are small in size. But Cell shocks Takeru later when he tells him, our race is now a cursed race. Brout here tells them, we need your help because we want to get rid of the curse that has afflicted us. Takeru here starts thinking and says, is the cursed lineage the noble elf lineage or the elf race in general? After that, Cell apologizes to Takeru for not welcoming them properly enough and immediately tells them about their problems. But Takeru doesn't care at all and says, it's nothing. Takeru asks him later, why is the magical energy present among you so abundant and its pressure much higher than normal? Cell is surprised that Takeru could sense the magical energy present among them and tells him our energy has increased greatly in the last year. He tells him, is there something bothering you about this magical energy? Takeru immediately tells him, no, not at all. Maybe the problem is with me. I want to try something first. Later, they go outside and Takeru starts gathering all his magical energy and tries to make a magic stone to absorb the excess magical energy present. The guards are afraid of Takeru and feel he intends to cause a disaster in their ruler, so Cell tells them, calm down a bit. I'm fine, and you don't need to be afraid. Takeru makes a huge magic stone, and later asks Cell to touch the stone. The guards are still afraid and run to him to protect him, but Cell immediately touches the magic stone Takeru made. Suddenly we find the magic stone flying in the sky, and the stone's color changes from yellow to green, and it begins to absorb the excess magical energy. Brout notices that the magical energy has become good and moderate, and everyone can now breathe normally. Cell here is amazed and says, is it possible that someone from a different race other than elves could understand the problem we've had for a year, absorb the excess magical energy, and return it to normal levels? Immediately he bows to him again and thanks him for his help. He takes him later to the writing carved on the magic stone. When Takeru reads the message, he learns it is a threat to the elf race and that a different race will come soon to eliminate the elf kingdom and exploit everyone in it, making them slaves. Cell is surprised that Takeru could read the message without him reading it to him or translating it and says, clearly you have many talents. He asks Takeru, how do we solve this problem, and who is this strange race that wants to come occupy our land and eliminate us? Takeru is surprised that despite him reducing the magical pressure present in the kingdom, the land feeding the Tree of Life is still as it was and hasn't changed. At night, we see Takeru decided to relax in the water with his friends and starts thinking about the message written on the magic stone and wants to know who is behind writing this message. He goes out to the balcony later and sees Brout standing alone, so he asks her, I want to know everything about the curse that afflicted you. Her sister Amber comes and decides to tell Takaru about the curse. She tells him the curse has been with us for a long time and only affects the upper class of elves. She tells him the disease began to spread in our generations a long time ago, and this disease affects their growth and physical development. Over the past 50 years, the symptoms have increased greatly, and a rumor spread that our bloodline is cursed because our children, when born, don't survive and die immediately. When Takaru asks her about the cause making all this happen, she tells him, "I don't know," and keeps crying because she also had a small child who died as soon as he was born. Later he goes to the throne room with Cell, and they introduce him to the Queen of the Elves, their mother, whose name is Melkira. When she first sees Takaru, she is shocked because she sees the color of his magical energy is very different and rare, which is evidence that he possesses great power. She also notices the dragon bee and knows this is the son of the great legendary dragon. She tells him, "Surely the legendary dragon left his son for you to raise because he saw the color of your magical energy and knew you possess great magical power." She thanks him for reducing the magical pressure that was present in their kingdom. Takaru asks her, "Did an earthquake happen with you about a year ago, and after that the magical energy present with you changed?" She tells him exactly about a year ago a huge earthquake occurred in our kingdom, and after that our magical pressure increased greatly. He tells her most likely the earthquake that occurred awakened a very large monster, and due to the awakening of this strong monster, an imbalance occurred in the magical energy balance. The Elf Queen is surprised that he knows all this information and keeps begging him to help them. After that, Takaru gathers with his friends and tells them, "I have reached a very important conclusion." He takes out a magic bottle from his pocket, and as soon as he opens it, a barrier comes out surrounding them, and this barrier prevents anyone from hearing anything he says. Takaru tells them, "I examined the Queen and also examined Cell and his sister Amber, and discovered that the three suffer from genetic disorders." Brout tells him, "What do you mean by that?" He tells her normally when anyone is born, they inherit their parents' genes, but their 3 genes are abnormal and different. When he asks about the person married to Brout's sister, she says the one married to her is one of their relatives. So he learns that the upper elf class is not cursed or anything, and the problem they have is due to inbreeding because they care greatly about their race and don't like to mix with anyone. But he tells them in the end that someone played with their genetic genes, and in short, Takaru means that one of the upper elf class has different blood, and is the reason for changing their genes. Brout is very happy that her family is not afflicted by a curse or anything, but the idea of convincing the upper elf class to marry from other families outside the upper families will be very difficult and requires someone with a strong personality to convince them. The solution, of course, lies with Hoff, since she is the legendary horse that they greatly respect and consider an important symbol to them, but Hoff refuses to get involved in this matter or talk about it. Takaru begs her to help them solve the problem they have. Hoff tells him, "I agree to help you, but on one condition only, that Takaru makes me a very delicious meal, and this meal must be of potatoes with butter and soy sauce." And we continue our story and see Prole crying from joy and saying, "Finally, there won't be any cursed children like me anymore." Then Huff says to her that there's no need to cry and come on, let's look for the person responsible for all this, and we are here with you to help you. And we see Hufu flying and searching for a river named Arena River, because it's highly likely the person responsible for all this is there, and Takro, Prole, and Clay are waiting for her. And when she returns to them, she hasn't found any information at all about the location of the Arena River. And Clay tells them that maybe due to the high magical pressure present here, we can't determine the river's location or know exactly where it is. So Takra tells Prolate that we must gather information through the guild and asks her about the guild's location, saying, "Is there someone there we can She tells him, "Yes, we have a very large and famous guild named Deimos, and surely there is someone who can help us and tell us any useful information." And Clay tells Takro that the Deimos Guild is one of the most famous guilds in the world. So they decide to go there to look for any information that can help them. And they arrive later in front of the guild, and Clay starts talking to Takro, telling him some information about the guild, saying it is famous as the Phantom Guild because this guild is isolated from the world and doesn't like to interact with us much. And Takro says this is a good chance for me to go in and ask them about the rare resources present in this world. Maybe I'll find things I haven't seen and start collecting them and benefit from them. And when they enter, they look for someone there to ask, and the guild leader, whose name is Sarah, appears to them and welcomes them all. And when she sees Prat, she runs to reassure her and says to her, "I was very worried about you when you left the Kingdom of Alaf, and it's good that I've been reassured and seen you again." After that, Tekro and Clay go to the wall where missions are posted and find many uncompleted missions, and most of the missions available are resource gathering missions. He finds a mission to collect cost mushrooms, and this mission is of B rank. So Sarah approaches him and says, "You've chosen a very beautiful mission because these mushrooms taste sweet even if eaten raw. And of course, food is the most important thing for Takro. So for him, the mission to collect these mushrooms will be of the highest priority to try their taste. And Sarah tells him that these mushrooms grow in a very distant cave, and what's special about them is that they glow in the dark. But the problem with the cave where the mushroom is located is that the magical pressure there is very high, which is why most adventurers withdrew from carrying out this mission. I've been to that cave before and I have no problem guiding you to its path. So Takro gets excited and says this is a chance to go to the cave named Keto to look for these mushrooms. And maybe we'll find information there about the Arena River we're looking. And at night, we see Takro preparing magical drinks and he asks him about these drinks. So Takro says, since the magical pressure there is high and the place is dangerous, these magical drinks will definitely benefit us. The next morning they meet Sarah and Takro is surprised by the very large number of requests specifically for collecting cat ear mushrooms. So he tells her, don't worry, we will complete all these missions very easily. And before they leave, she says to them, you don't need any help or equipment to assist you during your journey. They say to her, don't worry, we are ready and have everything with us. And after that, they fly towards Keto Cave, and of course Prole guides them on the path because she knows it. And during their way to the cave, Takro notices that the magical pressure has started to rise significantly. He takes out the magical drinks and decides to give them to them. So they ask him, what are these drinks? He tells them, these drinks will protect you from the high magical pressure when we reach Keto Cave. And as soon as they arrive near the cave, they are surprised by a very large number of monsters lying dead, and they don't know the cause of their death. So Prole decides to examine the matter herself, and as soon as she approaches the cave entrance, she is surprised that she can't breathe and the magical pressure is high. And Clay too, when he runs to catch up with her, also can't breathe and feels that they are both choking. So Takro immediately uses purification magic to reduce the magical pressure around them, and after that he tells them, before you enter the cave, use the magical drinks I gave you to protect yourself. And as soon as they use them, they are surprised that the magical pressure around them has disappeared and the air has now become normal. And they later learn that the monsters they saw dead outside died due to the high magical pressure present near the cave. And at that time, Takro worries about Huff entering with them, so he says to her, I'll tell you what, stay outside now until we enter and explore the cave. She says to him, don't worry, I won't be affected by anything, and immediately transforms, shrinks herself, sits on Clay's shoulder, and says to him, I am protected now in the magical shield you gave. And they enter inside the cave, which is literally dark, and Takro uses light magic to illuminate the place. And Prolate tells them that the place is very complex and you might get lost, so it's best if you stay close to me because I know the way well. And Prolate says the place has changed from the last time I was here, and suddenly, while walking, they find a strange insect they see for the first time. And Prolate is surprised because it's the first time she's seen this insect. And when she tries to approach it to see it, the insect attacks her with a burning sting, but she quickly dodges it. So they all start to be cautious because they don't know what this insect's attack style is. But the Shako teacher is when he looks behind them and finds a very large number of these insects behind them, and they begin to surround them. After a while, we see the insects surrounding them from everywhere, literally, and immediately one of the insects attacks Ro, so he immediately charges his hand with magical energy and gives it a very strong punch that sends it flying. Then we see another insect attacking Clay, but with one strike from him he finishes it off. And after that we see the dragon bee using fire magic and setting a large number of them on fire. And Takro feels that there is no solution for them now except to fight. But Prolette tells him there is a way out and you must come after me now, and immediately jumps over an insect and says to them, come on, let's run quickly from here. And they start running, trying to find a way out. But the insects keep chasing them and don't leave them at all. So Takro says, clearly there is no solution now except to fight, and asks Clay and Prolette to stay close to him. And he immediately activates a strong magical incantation and creates a barrier. This barrier, as soon as it approaches the insects, literally destroys and annihilates them. And due to the power of this incantation, it changes the structure of the cave they are in and creates an opening in the ceiling. And after that, they decide to take a rest, take out their sandwiches and chat and keep eating. And after that, they continue their way to explore the cave. And here Clay feels something strange and begins to warn Takro, saying, I feel there is a monster. And they later reach the place where the mushroom is, and of course the place is illuminated, and we know that this mushroom is the reason for this illumination because this mushroom glows in the dark according to the information Sarah told them. And Takro, as soon as he sees this mushroom, is very amazed by it, and the first thing that comes to his mind is to try it with soy sauce. But as they are standing safely, they begin to feel a very huge magical energy and don't know its cause. So Huff says to them, I feel something is approaching us now. And Takro says, clearly Clay's feeling was correct, and there is indeed a monster close to us. And a sticky burning substance falls on Prolet's shoulder, and when they look up they find a very giant worm. And Prolet asks Takro, have you seen this monster before? So he immediately uses a search skill on it to get information about it, and learns that this worm is named Keto and is of B rank and possesses great strength. And Clay tells them, I've heard about the monster Keto and learned that it alone was able to destroy an entire kingdom with its armies. So Prolet tells Takro that the best solution is to leave now and escape, but Takro refuses to escape and decides to fight it, saying to Prolet, this would be a waste of time if we feel fear and run from a monster we can overcome. And when he researched it earlier, he learned that its weakness is fire, and he tells Clay, get ready to unleash your power. So Clay here says to Prolet, I don't want you to be afraid when you see my new form, and begins to transform into his beastly form. And we see Huff here saying to them, may God enlighten you, come on now, finish it off, and I'll be here cheering for you. So Prolet gets encouraged here and says to them, alright, since you've decided to fight, I'm with you and not afraid. And Takro begins to activate some magical incantations on them like speed and protection skills, so they can fight this beastly worm. And immediately the dragon bee launches an attack and uses fire magic on it, but the fire magic enrages this giant worm, and it immediately releases many tentacles and keeps attacking. And Clay takes advantage of its distraction attacking B and tries to attack it, but it senses him and releases other tentacles and ties him up. So Clay says to it, you think you can hold me like this? And immediately cuts off its tentacles and says to it, my body is now made of steel and no strike affects it, and says to it, not you, nor 10 like you can defeat me. And immediately the two of them attack each other, and with his spear he manages to cut through its armor. But Prolet says that the attacks of B and Clay aren't affecting it directly, and Takro is surprised how it can attack them and determine their locations even though it doesn't have eyes to see with. But he notices the sensors on its head and says that surely these sensors are a replacement for its eyes, and says the only solution to defeat it is to cut off its antennae. And Prolet immediately tries to attack it to cut the sensors on its head, and at that time Takro uses fire magic and casts an incantation in the air like this to distract the worm until Prolet can jump on its head, and immediately with the dagger she cuts off its antennae. And they notice that after cutting off its antennae, its movements have become and the dragon takes advantage of the opportunity and attacks with fire magic again. But strangely, the fire magic is extinguished immediately, and Takro realizes that the fire is being extinguished due to the great moisture present on its body. And the only solution to get rid of this moisture is to use salt. So he immediately takes out a strange flask filled with salt and throws it on the worm, and its body indeed begins to melt. And Clay immediately with his spear attacks it with a strong strike until he finishes it off. After that they continue their way, but suddenly Huff says to them, look above you like this. And when they look up they find a very large number of this worm's eggs on the cave ceiling. And Takro says we must get rid of them quickly before they hatch and later turn into the same size as this giant worm. But Clay tells him that these eggs have already started to hatch. So immediately Takro uses the search skill to know their weakness, and indeed their weakness is strong sunlight. So he asks them to close their eyes and then activates the sunlight incantation, and indeed the great power of the light is able to melt these eggs and get rid of them. And after they finish with all the eggs they are surprised by strong winds coming at them, and here Huff says to them, I feel its energy, and says to them this is the energy of the King of Darkness. And we see a strange being or person like this, his eye is glowing and we don't know exactly who this is. I wonder how Takro and his friends will deal with him. After feeling the magical energy of the Dark Sorcerer, they decide to leave the cave and start searching for the Arena River to cure the cursed elf race. On their way they find a small village and say, surely the Arena River will be near this village. When they arrive they are surprised to find a group of common elf hiding. Among them is an elf named Ludikar, who says that Ludikar is the sister of Brole whom she is looking for. Immediately upon seeing her, Brolet runs towards her. Clay says, I can't believe it. While we're looking for the Arena River, we find Ludikar, Brolet's sister. Huff realizes that this village is where the common elf are hiding, which is why Ludikar decided to go there and hide with them. Suddenly, without warning, Ludikar and Brolet start fighting. Takru here is shocked and doesn't know why they are fighting. They literally keep hitting each other as if they are enemies, not sisters at all. Brolet keeps shouting at her, saying, what made you leave without my permission? She says, I could never live with you because you are always arrogant and treat the common elf horribly. When Brolet asks her to return with them, Ludikar refuses, saying, I will never go back with you again. The fight between them continues and Takru tries to stop it, saying to Brolet, if you don't stop this fight, I won't let you have lunch with me today. He keeps baiting her, saying, today we'll eat delicious grilled chicken, and I know you love it. When Brolet hears about the fried chicken, she immediately leaves her sister, goes to the well and says, wait, I'll wash my face and clean up after this nasty fight. Takru goes to her sister and starts apologizing for Brawlet's strange behavior. She says, "I'm not upset at all. We're used to fighting like this all the time," she says to Takru. "I can't believe my sister made friends and met humans like you, a lizard like Clay, and even a noble like Hof." She says to Takru, "It's clear you are good friends, and I hope my sister hasn't caused you any trouble." Takru notices that she is in bad shape after the fight with her sister, so he decides to use a cleaning spell on her, making her clean again. She is surprised after he cleans her that Takru, despite being human, possesses such a rare and powerful spell. Hof says to her, "Takru isn't just an ordinary human, he's the strongest sorcerer in this world. You might meet him later." Takru says to Ludakar, "We are here with your sister to help you solve the curse problem." Ludakar is immediately shocked and says, "Have you found a solution to this problem?" He says, "I'm still researching it, and God willing, I will find a solution soon." They then decide to invite Takru and his friends to a grand dinner feast. Takru and his friends eat their fill. Later, Takru goes out and sits alone outside. Ludakar comes to him and says, "We are used to welcoming any guest who comes to our village." She is with her young daughter and shows her to Takru. They learn that she married a common elf and had this little girl. She tells him that she is fine now, isn't suffering from any curse, and has no growth problems like the ones that cause their children to die at birth. This is the reason she has been a fugitive until now, and doesn't want to return to live with her family again. They learn that when she requested long ago before running away to marry a common elf, the elf nobles refused, saying she would tarnish their lineage and must marry someone from her own family, a noble. Takru realizes that Ludakar succeeded in changing her fate and escaping the curse that was haunting them. The next day, they go to the forest and begin their journey to search for the Arena River. On the way, Hof senses a powerful magical energy approaching from behind and says to Takru, "Look behind you." When Takru looks back, he sees the sorceress of the Elf Kingdom, whose name is Queen Rina, the one they have been looking for. She immediately runs to Takru, hugs him, and is happy to see him, amazed by his intelligence for being able to read the message written on the magical stone. They learn that she wrote it to scare the nobles of the Elf Kingdom. Clearly she is not on good terms with them and often mocks them. Of course, Hof gets angry, and they decide to fight, but Takru immediately stops them, saying, "We came here to solve the curse problem, not to cause more destruction than they already have." Ludakar then returns with them to the kingdom and shows them the daughter she had after marrying a common elf. She says, "As you can see, my daughter is healthy, not afflicted by any disease, and has no growth problems like the ones that cause your children to die at birth." The queen here is happy to have a granddaughter, but the nobles are very upset and say to her, "How could you break our rules? By doing this, you have tainted our great lineage by marrying a commoner." As the argument intensifies, Queen Rina steps in, the elf sorceress who can solve this problem. She decides to use her magical power to summon her again. She says to them, "The curse that befell you is due to your arrogance and how you treat the common elf as worthless people with no value. The only way to get rid of this curse is for you to live together again, with no distinction between nobles and commoners." The nobles of course listen to her and refuse to disobey her. And so, Takru managed to solve the curse problem and make the elf society live together without discrimination. He decides the next day to return to the city of Belcom, because his mission here is successfully completed. The next day the queen and the elf begin to bid Takru farewell, thanking him for his great help. Takru starts saying goodbye to Brole, and she says, "Can't you stay with us for a few days?" He says, "I have many tasks I must complete, so I can't stay any longer." Brawlet continues to cry because Takru is leaving her, and she wished she could stay in his team and continue adventures with him. Takru returns to the blacksmith and takes the gathering shears he requested. He is very happy because these shears are exceptional for collecting resources. He continues for a month collecting resources and completing tasks for his guild. We return to the Elf Kingdom and see Ludakar talking to her sister Brawlet. She says, "Are you sure about your decision?" She says, "I have made this decision and will not go back on it." They learn that she decided to return to Takru to continue her adventures with him. Later they see Takru training his dragon bee to use fire magic. She manages to kill a wild bull with her magic, but it seems Hof isn't impressed with Bee's performance and says to her, "Fire magic should be stronger than this because you are the daughter of a legendary dragon." Suddenly, Takru is shocked to see a sandstorm approaching from afar. They see Brolau riding her smelly worm, running towards Takru. When she reaches him, Takru of course can't stand the awful smell. When Brawlet approaches him, Takru says, "What brings you to me?" She says, "I talked to my family, and they were convinced to let me return to the human kingdom to join your team and continue adventures with you." They see the sorcerer who summoned Takru to this world watching him, following all his events. He realizes how much Takru succeeded in his journey, making many friends and succeeding in every difficult mission he undertook. He says, "My choice was very successful in choosing Takru for this world." Takru daydreams while standing with them and says, "Since I arrived in this world, I have faced many adventures and problems, but I was ultimately happy with them. I managed to gain skills and experiences I never saw in my real world. He is very excited to continue exploring this world to become the strongest sorcerer in the world. Will our hero succeed in this dream of his or not? We will know, of course, in Season 2, which hasn't been released yet. So if you are excited for Season 2 of the story of the Sorcerer to Crew, don't forget to support us with a like and subscribe so that when Season 2 starts, you'll be the first to see it with us. See you in the next video. Bye.